The house is still. The street outside is silent, bathed in the cool artificial glow of a distant light. The world, it seems, is asleep, but you are not. The clock on your phone reads 3 a.m., a familiar and unwelcome friend. In the quiet of your room, a storm is raging, not one of thunder or rain, but a tempest of the mind. It begins with a single thought, a loose thread, and then unravels into a chaotic tapestry of obligations and anxieties. The email you forgot to send, the awkward conversation from yesterday, replayed on a relentless loop, each word scrutinized, each pause analyzed for failure, the endless to-do list for tomorrow, a mountain that seems to grow taller with every passing sleepless minute. Your mind drifts to the phantom glow of a screen, to the curated lives of others, their triumphs and travels scrolling by in a silent parade of comparison, leaving behind a subtle yet persistent ache, a feeling, a whisper that grows louder in the stillness of the night. It is the whisper of insufficiency, the quiet, gnawing sense that you have not done enough, that you are not good enough, that you do not have enough. This is not merely a lack of sleep. It is a symptom of a deeper condition, a spiritual fever that runs rampant in our modern world. It is the fever of constant striving, the anxiety of being left behind, the immense pressure to construct a perfect life, a flawless self that does not and cannot exist. It is the exhaustion that comes from living in a world whose primary message is one of lack. You are told, in 1,000 different ways, that happiness lies just around the corner, in the next purchase, the next promotion, the next achievement. But the corner is never turned. The satisfaction never lasts. And so, the mind remains restless, forever chasing a horizon that recedes as you approach. The solution, the true remedy for this profound weariness, is not found in a stronger pill or a more luxurious mattress. It is not found outside of yourself at all. The path to peace, the key to the deep, restorative rest you crave, lies within. It is found in an ancient wisdom, a gentle science of the mind that has been offered as a balm for human suffering for over 2,000 years. This is not a religion you must adopt or a complex dogma you must believe. It is a practical medicine for the heart. It is a way of seeing, a way of being that offers a radical and liberating alternative to the madness of more. It begins with a single, foundational affirmation, a truth so simple it is often overlooked. The peace you seek, the rest you deserve, arrives in the moment you can finally accept this truth. That right here, right now, with nothing more added and nothing taken away, you are enough. To begin our journey towards the heart of stillness, we must first have the courage to look directly at the nature of our restlessness. We must diagnose the fever. In the language of the Buddha, this fundamental condition of unease has a name. The name is dukkha. This word, from the ancient Pali language, is often translated into English simply as suffering. But this translation is incomplete and can even be misleading. It may conjure images of great tragedy, of famine, war, or devastating loss. And while dukkha certainly includes these things, its meaning is far more subtle, far more pervasive, and far more relevant to that feeling you have at 3 in the morning. Think of it less as suffering and more as a deep, underlying unsatisfactoriness. It is the friction of existence. It is the subtle but constant stress of things being not quite right. It is the background hum of anxiety that runs beneath the surface of even our most pleasant days. Dukkha is the faint disappointment you feel when a beautiful sunset ends. It is the low-grade tension in your shoulders as you sit in traffic. It is the frustration of a computer that runs too slowly. It is the slight sting of a pleasant memory, knowing that it is in the past and can never be perfectly recreated. It is the experience of wanting things to be different than they are, even in the smallest ways. It is the inherent instability of life itself. And this is the first, and perhaps most compassionate, of the Buddha's great insights. The first noble truth is not a command or a judgment. It is simply a recognition. It is a gentle, honest statement. There is unsatisfactoriness in life. Now, the modern mind, the Western mind, often rebels against this idea. We are taught to be optimists, to look on the bright side, to believe that happiness is the default state, and that any deviation from it is a problem to be fixed. So when we hear there is suffering, we might interpret it as pessimistic or even morbid. But this is a profound misunderstanding. The recognition of dukkha is not a statement of despair. It is a statement of reality, and more importantly, it is a statement of universality. This is a crucial point. The feeling of unsatisfactoriness, the anxiety, the sense that something is missing, is not your fault. It is not a sign that you have failed at life, or that you are somehow broken or deficient. It is a fundamental part of the human experience, shared by every single person who has ever lived, in one form or another. It is as impersonal as the law of gravity. It does not single you out. When you lie awake at night, feeling the weight of the world, wrestling with your thoughts, you are not alone in that struggle. You are participating in a universal condition. The Buddha's first truth is an act of immense kindness, because it lifts the terrible burden of personal failure from our shoulders. It allows us to stop blaming ourselves for our own restlessness. It tells us, this feeling is not a sign that you are wrong. It is simply a sign that you are human. So how does this universal condition, this dukkha, manifest as that storm in the mind that steals our sleep? The mind abhors a vacuum, and it despises instability. When it senses the inherent unsatisfactoriness of the present moment, its programming kicks in. It tries to solve dukkha. It believes that if it can just think hard enough, it can figure out a way to create a permanent state of satisfaction. So, it begins to search for the cause of the problem. It travels into the past, replaying conversations, looking for mistakes, searching for the root of a current insecurity. It creates elaborate dramas of regret and what if. Then, it rockets into the future, rehearsing for potential conflicts, planning for 1,000 different catastrophic outcomes, trying to build a fortress of thought that can protect it from uncertainty. This frantic activity, this desperate attempt to think its way out of the human condition, is precisely what keeps us awake. The mind becomes a frantic troubleshooter, trying to fix a problem that isn't a problem, but simply a feature of existence itself. It is trying to nail a shadow to the floor. The more it struggles, the more agitated it becomes, and the further away rest becomes. To illustrate this, the Buddha told a simple, powerful story. It is the parable of the second arrow. Imagine you are walking through a forest, and suddenly an arrow flies out from the trees and strikes you in the arm. This is painful. It is an unfortunate, unwelcome event. This first arrow, the Buddha said, is an unavoidable part of life. In our lives, this arrow can be a critical remark from a boss, an unexpected bill, a headache, or the simple fact of getting older. These things happen. They are painful. This is dukkha. But then, what do most of us do? Instead of simply tending to the wound of the first arrow, we take out a second arrow and we shoot it into ourselves in the very same spot. This second arrow is our reaction to the first. It is the story we tell ourselves. It is the judgment, the fear, the anger, and the self-pity. The first arrow was the criticism from your boss. The second arrow is your internal monologue. I am a failure. I'm going to lose my job. I'm not good enough. Why does this always happen to me? The first arrow was the physical pain of a headache. The second arrow is the thought, this is ruining my day. I can't get anything done. What if this is a sign of a serious illness? The Buddha taught that the pain of the first arrow is inevitable, but the suffering of the second arrow is optional. It is self-inflicted. And our minds, especially when we are tired and vulnerable in the dead of night, are masters of archery. We are constantly shooting these second arrows of judgment, worry, and fear into ourselves. The feeling of not being enough is a quiver full of these arrows, which we use to compound every small pain and disappointment of the day. By the time we lay our head on the pillow, we are not just wounded by life, we are riddled with the self-inflicted wounds of our own reaction to it. And it is the burning pain of these second arrows that truly keeps us from peace. Therefore, to see and understand dukkha is not to surrender to pessimism. It is to become a wise physician of your own mind. It is the most empowering first step you can take. Imagine suffering for years from a mysterious illness, feeling tired and unwell, blaming yourself for your lack of energy, thinking you are weak or lazy. Then, you finally go to a skilled doctor who runs some tests and gives you a clear diagnosis. They give your condition a name. In that moment, there is not despair, there is relief. The burden of self-blame vanishes. The confusion evaporates. You finally understand what is happening. You have a clear, honest, and compassionate starting point for healing. This is the function of the first noble truth. It names our deepest spiritual ailment. It allows us to stop fighting with reality and to stop blaming ourselves. It gives us permission to be exactly where we are, to feel exactly what we feel, and to know that it is a shared, universal experience. We can finally stop shooting the second arrow. We can look at the first arrow with clear eyes and say, this is the nature of things. This is dukkha. And with that recognition, a space begins to open up. A quietness begins to form around the edges of the storm. For once the illness is named, we can begin to inquire about its cause. If this profound, pervasive unsatisfactoriness is the diagnosis that keeps us from our rest, then where does it come from? What fuels this spiritual fever? The Buddha, like any master physician, did not stop at the diagnosis. With the same clarity and compassion, he pointed directly to the source of the heat, the root of the condition itself. We have sat with the diagnosis. We have had the courage to name the profound sense of unsatisfactoriness, the spiritual friction known as dukkha. We have lifted the burden of personal failure, understanding that this is not a flaw in our character, but a fundamental condition of our shared human existence. A great sense of relief can come with this recognition, but a diagnosis alone is not a cure. A wise physician, having identified an illness, immediately turns their attention to its source. They ask, what causes this fever? What fuels this fire? The Buddha, in his role as the great physician of the mind, did precisely this. In his second noble truth, he points directly to the root cause of all our restlessness, all our striving, and all our sleepless nights. He gives it a name. The name is tanha. Tanha is another word from the ancient Pali, and its translation is beautifully and terribly precise. It means thirst. It can also be translated as craving or clinging. This is the engine that drives dukkha. It is the deep, insatiable thirst of the mind and heart that keeps us forever seeking, forever wanting, forever feeling that something is missing. It is the force that prevents us from ever truly being at rest, because a thirsty person cannot rest until their thirst is quenched. The Buddha, with his characteristic clarity, saw that this thirst manifests in three primary forms. To understand these three channels of craving is to see the very blueprint of our own anxiety by observing them within ourselves, not with judgment, but with gentle curiosity. We can begin to understand why our minds refuse to settle. The first and most obvious form is the thirst for sense pleasures. In Pali, this is kama tanha. This is the craving for things that delight our five senses. It is the desire for a delicious meal, the longing for a beautiful piece of music, the urge to buy a new piece of clothing that catches our eye, the craving for a pleasant touch, or the thirst for words of praise and admiration. On the surface, there is nothing wrong with enjoying these things. A tasty meal is a joy. A beautiful song can lift the spirit. The problem is not the pleasure itself. The problem is the thirst. It is the clinging, the desperate need for the pleasure to continue, and the deep unease we feel when it ends, or when we cannot get it. This thirst creates a constant state of seeking. We finish one good meal, and our mind is already planning the next. We watch one episode of a captivating show, and we immediately crave the next and the next. We receive a compliment, and we feel a momentary high, followed by a need for more validation. This cycle of seeking, momentary satisfaction, and renewed seeking is a primary driver of restlessness. Our mind is like a hungry ghost, never filled, always looking for its next meal. It cannot rest in the present because it is forever leaning into the future, anticipating the next source of pleasure that it believes will finally make it happy. The second form of thirst is deeper, more subtle, and lies at the very heart of our modern feeling of not being enough. This is the thirst for existence, or the thirst for becoming. In Pali, bhavatanha, this is not just a craving for a thing or an experience. It is the craving to be someone else, someone better, someone more. It is the relentless engine of ambition and self-improvement when it is driven by a sense of lack. This is the voice in our head that says, when I finally get that promotion, then I will be a success, and then I can relax. Or, when I lose 20 pounds, then I will be worthy of love. Or, when I finally buy a house, then I will feel secure. It is the constant project of self-creation, based on the faulty premise that the self we are right now is fundamentally inadequate. This thirst for becoming is the very definition of the not enough mind. It turns our entire life into a waiting room. We are always waiting for the real life to begin, the one where we have finally become the person we think we ought to be. This is why we cannot sleep. The mind is running on a hamster wheel of becoming, convinced that if it just runs a little faster, a little longer, it will finally arrive at a destination of worthiness. But the destination is a mirage. With every achievement, the goalposts shift. The promotion comes, but then the thirst for the next one begins. The house is bought, but then the thirst for a bigger one or a better neighborhood appears. Bhavatanha ensures that we are never truly at home in our own skin, because we are always trying to become a future, imaginary version of ourselves. The third form of thirst is perhaps the most surprising. It is the thirst for non-existence. In Pali, vibhava tanha. This is the craving for things to go away. It is the energy of aversion, of pushing away, of annihilation. It is the intense desire for a painful feeling to disappear. It is the desperate wish for a difficult person to get out of our lives. It is the longing for an overwhelming problem to simply cease to exist. When we are lying in bed and the storm of thoughts begins, vibhava is the voice that screams, "I just want this to stop. I wish my mind would shut up." It is the violent pushing against our own experience. But as with all thirst, This craving only creates more suffering. By fighting with our thoughts, we give them more energy. By desperately trying to annihilate our anxiety, we place it at the very center of our attention, making it stronger and more terrifying. It is like trying to flatten a wave in the ocean by hitting it with a hammer. The effort is futile and only creates more splashing and agitation. This thirst for non-existence is a powerful fuel for insomnia because it turns our bed into a battlefield where we are at war with our own mind. But a battlefield is no place for rest. These three thirsts, for pleasure, for becoming, and for annihilation, are the source of the fever. They are the hidden engine that keeps the wheels of dukkha spinning. Think about how they work together to create the prison of not enough. The thirst for pleasure tells you that what you currently have is not satisfying enough. The thirst for becoming tells you that who you currently are is not good enough. And the thirst for annihilation tells you that what you currently feel is not acceptable. It is a perfect, self-sustaining trap of dissatisfaction. And our modern world is the ultimate greenhouse for tanha. It is a vast, sophisticated system designed specifically to make us feel thirsty all the time. The entire industry of advertising is nothing more than the mass production of tanha. It creates an image of a beautiful, happy, successful person, and then tells you, you are not this person. But if you buy our product, you will be one step closer. It stimulates the thirst for pleasure and the thirst for becoming simultaneously. Social media is perhaps the most potent amplifier of tanha ever invented. The endless scroll is a fire hose of curated perfection, designed to make you feel that your life is less exciting, your relationships less perfect, your body less beautiful, and your accomplishments less significant than everyone else's. It is a machine for manufacturing envy, comparison, and a chronic sense of lack, all of which are forms of thirst. We marinate in this environment all day, soaking up these messages of insufficiency, and then we wonder why we cannot find peace when the lights go out. The Buddha used another powerful image to describe this process. He said that trying to satisfy your cravings is like being adrift on a raft in the middle of the ocean, dying of thirst. You are surrounded by water, endless and vast. The thirst becomes so agonizing, so unbearable, that you finally give in. You cup your hands, scoop up the ocean water, and drink it down. For a brief, fleeting moment, there is the sensation of relief. The cool liquid soothes your parched throat. But then, very quickly, the salt begins to work on your system. It draws the moisture out of your cells, and an even more intense, more desperate thirst arises. You are now far thirstier than you were before, so you drink more salt water, seeking that momentary relief. And in doing so, you drive yourself deeper and deeper into a state of agonizing, unquenchable thirst. This is a perfect metaphor for our relationship with tanha. We feel the ache of dissatisfaction, the thirst of the soul, and we try to quench it with the very things that make it worse. A new possession, another achievement, a distraction, a moment of sensual pleasure. Each drink provides a fleeting moment of relief, but only deepens the underlying thirst, ensuring that we will remain forever restless, forever seeking. To see this mechanism clearly, this engine of thirst running within us, is not a cause for despair. It is not another reason to feel bad about yourself. It is the second great, liberating step toward freedom. It is the moment the physician, having diagnosed the fever, pinpoints the infection that is causing it. There is immense power in this knowledge, because once the source of the fever is understood, once the nature of the poison is seen for what it is, the physician can finally begin to speak of a cure. They can offer the most beautiful and hopeful words in any language. This condition is treatable. There is a way to find fresh water. There is a way to quench this thirst for good. We have journeyed into the heart of our own restlessness. We have stood before the engine of our discontent, the insatiable, burning thirst called tanha. And to see this mechanism clearly, to witness the endless cycle of craving for pleasure, the craving to become someone better, and the craving for our own pain to disappear, can feel, at first, like a heavy realization. It can feel as though we are caught in a trap, doomed to drink salt water for the rest of our lives. If this is the engine, one might ask, can it ever be switched off? Is there any escape from this relentless thirst? It is right here, at this very point of potential despair, that the Buddha's teaching makes a dramatic and life-altering pivot. It turns from diagnosis to prognosis, from a description of the sickness to the breathtaking possibility of a cure. This is the third noble truth, the great message of light and hope that illuminates the entire path. It is the simple, radical, and profoundly optimistic assertion that there is an end to suffering. The thirst can be quenched. The fever can break. This state of cessation, this freedom, is called Nirodha. Nirodha simply means cessation or extinction, and the state that arises from this cessation is perhaps one of the most misunderstood concepts in all of Eastern philosophy, nirvana. For many in the West, the word nirvana conjures vague images of a floating, cloud-like heaven, a paradise you go to after you die. For others, it sounds like annihilation, a state of empty nothingness, the extinguishing of the self into a void. Both of these interpretations miss the beautiful and practical reality of what the Buddha was describing. Nirvana is not a place you go to. It is not a heaven in the sky. It is a state of mind. It is a psychological reality that is available to human beings here and now, in this very life. And it is not the annihilation of you. It is the annihilation of the prison that confines you. It is the cessation of the greed, the hatred, and the delusion that cause the burning fever of dukkha. It is the end of the thirst. Imagine your mind as a deep lake. For most of your life, the winds of craving and aversion have been blowing across its surface, churning the water into a constant agitation of waves and ripples. The water is murky, and you cannot see through to the bottom. This agitated, murky state is our normal experience of dukkha, driven by tanha. Nirodha, the cessation, is what happens when the wind stops blowing. The waves gradually subside, the ripples flatten out, the sediment slowly settles, and for the first time, the water becomes perfectly still, perfectly clear. You can see all the way to the bottom. You can see the fish, the plants, the stones, exactly as they are. Nothing has been annihilated. The lake is still there. Your awareness is still there. What has ceased is the agitation, the turmoil, the chaos that obscured your vision. This stillness, this clarity, this profound peace is Nirodha. It is the mind's natural state, its original nature, once the winds of craving have been calmed. This state of being is the ultimate antidote to the sleeplessness that plagues us. A mind at war cannot rest. A mind that is constantly thirsting, constantly chasing the next pleasure, constantly trying to become a better version of itself, constantly fighting against its own uncomfortable feelings, is a mind that is fundamentally incapable of surrender. And sleep is a form of surrender. It requires trust. It requires letting go. Nirodha is the state of ultimate letting go. When the thirst for more is absent, the mind has no reason to race into the future. When the aversion to the present is absent, the mind has no reason to fight with what is. It can simply be. In this state of profound inner peace, sleep is not something you have to hunt for or struggle with. It arises naturally, effortlessly, as a welcome friend. It is the body's response to a mind that has finally come home. And this is where the simple affirmation, "You are enough," reveals its true power. It is not just a comforting phrase or a piece of positive thinking. It is a verbal expression of the experience of Nirodha. To truly, deeply feel in your bones that you are enough right now is to experience the cessation of thirst. Think of it. If you are truly enough, what is there to crave? The thirst to become someone else, bhavatana, dissolves because you are no longer a project to be completed. You are a reality to be lived. The thirst for more pleasure and more possessions, kamatana, loses its frantic urgency because your sense of well-being is no longer dependent on external things. And the thirst to annihilate your painful feelings, vibhavatanya, is replaced by a gentle acceptance, because if you are enough, then your feelings, all of them, must be a valid part of that enoughness. To feel I am enough is to stop feeding the fire of craving. This brings us to the Buddha's most famous metaphor for Nirodha. He asked his followers to imagine a fire. A fire can only burn as long as it has fuel, and as long as there are the right conditions, like oxygen, to support its combustion. In our inner world, our suffering, our anxiety, our racing thoughts are like a fire. The Buddha called it the fire of greed, the fire of hatred, and the fire of delusion. It is a fire that burns hot and causes immense pain. The fuel for this fire is tanha, our relentless craving. Every time we cling to a desire, every time we push away a feeling, every time we indulge in the fantasy that we are not enough, we are throwing another log onto this fire. We are feeding the flames that consume our peace. So, what is the intelligent way to put out a fire? You do not have to jump into the flames and fight them. You do not have to beat them with a stick. All you have to do is stop giving it fuel. You simply cease to feed it. And what happens when you stop throwing logs on a fire? It does not vanish in an instant, but gradually, naturally, the flames begin to diminish. The heat subsides, the roaring turns into a gentle crackle, and then into glowing embers. And finally, when all the fuel has been consumed, the fire goes out. This going out is the literal meaning of the word nirvana. The fire has been extinguished, and what is left? Not a cold, dark void. What is left is the end of the burning. What is left is coolness, peace, and safety. A classic term for nirvana in the ancient texts is sitibhava, which means a state of coolness. This is the ultimate relief from the fever of restlessness. It is the peace that passes all understanding, because it is not a peace that depends on things going our way. It is a peace that arises from the very cessation of wanting and not wanting. It is the deep, unshakable contentment of a thirst that has finally, truly been quenched. The promise of Nirodha is the great, shining hope at the center of the Buddhist path. It is the declaration that you are not broken and you are not condemned to a life of anxiety and striving. Freedom is possible. Peace is possible. A deep and profound rest is possible. But the Buddha was not a philosopher who dealt in vague promises or wishful thinking. He was an eminently practical teacher, a spiritual physician. Having diagnosed the illness, identified its cause, and assured the patient that a cure exists, he then did what any responsible physician must do. He wrote a prescription. He laid out a clear, detailed, and accessible map that anyone can follow to journey from the burning fire of dukkha to the coolness of Nirodha. This map, this practical, step-by-step guide to healing, is the fourth and final noble truth. It is the path itself. We stand at a place of profound hope. We have seen that the fever of restlessness, fueled by the insatiable thirst of tanha, is not a life sentence. A cure exists. A state of coolness, clarity, and profound peace, known as nirodha, is possible for us. But to know that a destination exists is one thing. To have a map to get there is another entirely. A person lost in a forest does not just need to be told that a safe village exists. They need a path to walk on. The Buddha, in his immense compassion and practicality, did not just point to the distant mountain peak of peace. He laid out, step by step, a clear and comprehensive path to reach it. This path is the fourth noble truth, the culmination of his teaching. It is the prescription for our spiritual ailment. It is called the Noble Eightfold Path, or in Pali, Aryo Atatang, Jiko Magga. Before we look at the individual steps, it is important to understand what a path means in this context. This is not a list of rigid commandments that must be followed out of fear or blind obedience. It is not a linear sequence where you must perfect step 1 before moving to step 2. Rather, think of it as a holistic guide for living a conscious and balanced life. Imagine 8 strands of a single strong rope. Each strand is essential. Each strand intertwines with and supports all the others. As you strengthen one, you find the others become stronger too. This path is a process of cultivation, a gradual training of the heart and mind, designed to gently and systematically dismantle the entire structure of suffering and replace it with a structure of wisdom, peace, and freedom. It is a guide to transforming our very way of being in the world. To make this comprehensive system easier to understand, the 8 factors are traditionally grouped into 3 essential trainings. These are sila, or ethical conduct, samadhi, or mental discipline, and prajna, or wisdom. Think of it as building a house. First, you must lay a solid foundation. That is sila, or ethical conduct. This is how we manage our relationship with the world, our speech, and our actions, so that we stop creating external agitation and inner turmoil. It is about living in a way that our conscience is clear and our heart is at ease, creating the stability necessary for deeper inner work. This training includes 3 factors of the path: right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Once the foundation is stable, you can begin to erect the structure of the house itself. This is samadhi, or mental discipline. This is the training of the mind, developing its capacity for focus, calm, and unwavering presence. If sila calms our relationship with the world, samadhi calms the inner world of our own mind. It is the practice of taming the so-called monkey mind that swings wildly from thought to thought. This training is like a gym for your attention, strengthening your ability to remain centered and undisturbed. It includes 3 factors: right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Finally, with a stable foundation and a strong structure, you can put on the roof that completes the house and gives you a clear view of the surrounding landscape. This is prajna, or wisdom. This is not mere intellectual knowledge from books. It is a direct, penetrating insight into the nature of reality. With a mind that has been calmed through ethical living and sharpened through mental discipline, we are finally able to see things as they truly are. We can see the impermanence, the unsatisfactoriness, and the selfless nature of all phenomena. This wisdom is what ultimately liberates us. It is the light that dispels the darkness of ignorance for good. This training includes the first 2 factors of the path: right understanding and right thought. So let us take a brief tour of these 8 interconnected strands that form the rope to freedom. The journey begins with wisdom, with prajna. The first factor is right understanding. This is the starting point and the culmination of the path. It means seeing the 4 noble truths not as a theory, but as a reality in our own lives. It is the clear seeing of the way things are. The second is right thought or right intention. This means cultivating thoughts that are free from greed, free from hatred, and free from cruelty. It is the conscious choice to foster thoughts of kindness, compassion, and letting go. Next comes the foundation of sila, our ethical conduct. The third factor is right speech. This means abstaining from lying, from divisive speech that sets people against each other, from harsh speech that hurts others, and from idle chatter that distracts the mind. It is about using our words to promote truth, harmony, and healing. The fourth is right action. This involves refraining from harming living beings, from taking what is not given, and from sexual misconduct. It is the practice of acting with integrity and compassion in all that we do. The fifth factor is right livelihood. This encourages us to earn a living in a way that is honorable and does not bring harm to ourselves or others. It means avoiding professions based on deception, exploitation, or violence. When we live this way, our mind is not burdened by guilt or remorse, making it a peaceful place to inhabit. Finally, we come to the training of samadhi, or mental discipline. The sixth factor is right effort. This is not about straining or struggling, but about applying our energy in a wise and balanced way. It is the gentle effort to prevent unwholesome thoughts from arising, to abandon those that have arisen, to cultivate wholesome thoughts, and to maintain the wholesome states that are already present. The seventh, and perhaps most famous factor today, is right mindfulness. This is the practice of maintaining a bare, non-judgmental awareness of what is happening in the present moment, in our body, in our feelings, in our mind, and in the world around us. The eighth and final factor is right concentration. As mindfulness develops, we gain the ability to unify the mind and focus it on a single object, leading to deep states of tranquility and inner peace called jhana. It is in this state of profound stillness that the deepest insights of wisdom can arise. To bring this all together, imagine a master carpenter who is given a rough, gnarled, and warped piece of timber. That piece of wood is our ordinary, untrained mind. It is full of the splinters of dukkha and warped by the constant dampness of craving, tanha. The carpenter is a practitioner of the path. Her vision is to transform this rough timber into a beautiful, smooth, and functional table. That finished table represents Nirodha, the end of suffering. She does not simply start hacking at the wood randomly. She has a set of tools laid out in perfect order. Her set of tools is the Noble Eightfold Path. Her first tool is right understanding, the tape measure and square, which allow her to see the wood for what it is and to envision what it can become. Her right intention is the design she holds in her mind. Then, she begins the work of sila. She secures the wood firmly to the workbench, representing right livelihood and right action, ensuring a stable foundation. She clears the area of debris, just as right speech clears away harmful communication. Then she begins the training of samadhi. She uses the plane of right effort to shave away the largest, roughest parts of the wood. She then uses the sandpaper of right mindfulness, moving from coarse grits to finer grits, smoothing out all the subtle imperfections. And finally, for the detailed work, the joinery, she uses the fine chisel of right concentration, With all these tools used in harmony, the process of prajna, or wisdom, naturally unfolds. The inherent beauty of the wood, its grain and character, is revealed. The carpenter did not add anything to the wood. She simply, skillfully, removed everything that was obscuring its true nature. This is the map, the complete set of tools for our own liberation, laid out before us. At first glance, it can seem like a great deal to undertake, but like any great journey, it begins not by staring at the final destination, but by taking a single, conscious step. And the first step on this path, the foundation of wisdom that illuminates all the others that follow, is the tool that allows us to see the landscape of our own mind with newfound clarity. It is the beginning of right understanding. It is the courage to look at the nature of ourselves and the world, and to begin, finally, to see things as they truly are. We have been given the map. The Noble Eightfold Path lies before us, a complete guide to lead us from the restless fever of wanting to the cool, clear peace of liberation. And this path begins, as all true journeys must, with a single step of understanding. It begins with prajna, with wisdom, and the very first element of wisdom, the light that illuminates the way forward, is called right understanding. This is not about memorizing doctrines or believing in something you are told. It is about seeing. It is about developing the courage and the clarity to look at your own experience and the world, and to see things not as you wish they were or fear they are, but as they truly are. And the very first object of this clear seeing, the place we must begin our investigation, is the one thing we feel we know most intimately. We must turn the light of inquiry upon the self. We must ask the fundamental question: who or what is this I that lies awake at night? Who is this I that feels it is not enough? The answer that the Buddha discovered is perhaps the most revolutionary and deeply healing insight in human history. It is the teaching of anatta, or not self. Now, when we first hear this phrase, not self, it can sound frightening. It can sound like a cold, nihilistic declaration that we do not exist, that we are nothing. But this is a misunderstanding. The teaching of anatta is not a denial of your existence. You are clearly here, reading these words, breathing, feeling, thinking. Instead, it is a denial that you exist as a separate, solid, continuous, and unchanging entity. It is a radical shift in perspective. It asks us to stop seeing the self as a noun, a static thing, an object we carry around. Instead, it invites us to see the self as a verb. You are not a thing. You are a process. You are not a noun. You are an event. You are a constantly changing, flowing, interconnected stream of experiences. To make this clear, the Buddha analyzed our experience of self and found that everything we identify as me or mine can be sorted into 5 categories, or aggregates. These are called the skandhas in Sanskrit. Let's look at them one by one. The first aggregate is form. This is your physical body, your skin, your bones, your organs, your hair. We often think, this is me, this body is me. But is it? Your body today is not the same body you had 7 years ago. It is not even the same body you had 1 minute ago. Cells have died. New cells have been born. The air you just breathed in has become part of you. It is a constant, flowing river of physical processes. So, if it is always changing, can it be a permanent, solid you? The Buddha would say no. The body is something we have, but it is not what we essentially are. The second aggregate is feeling. This refers to the raw sensations that arise whenever we contact the world. They are categorized as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. The warmth of the sun on your skin is a pleasant feeling. The sound of a siren is an unpleasant feeling. The sensation of your clothes against your skin might be neutral. These feelings arise, they last for a moment, and then they disappear, replaced by new ones. Are you your feelings? If you were, then when a pleasant feeling ended, part of you would die. When you feel sadness, you would become sadness itself. But you know this is not true. You are the one who experiences the feeling, but you are not the feeling itself. The third aggregate is perception. This is the faculty of the mind that recognizes, labels, and categorizes our experience. It's the part of the mind that sees a shape and says tree, or hears a sound and says car. It is also what forms our opinions, like that movie was good, or this person is annoying. Our perceptions are deeply conditioned by our past experiences, our culture, and our language. They are not an objective window onto reality. Are you your perceptions? If so, which one? The one you had as a child, or the one you have now? They are constantly shifting, so they cannot be the permanent you. The fourth aggregate is the most complex. It is mental formations. This is a vast category that includes all of our thoughts, moods, emotions, habits, biases, intentions, and volitional actions. It is where the inner critic lives. It is the source of the thought, I am a failure. It is the origin of the feeling of jealousy, the surge of anger, the quiet hum of anxiety. This is the part of the self we most strongly identify with. We believe our thoughts are who we are. But look closely. A thought appears in your mind. Where did it come from? It stays for a moment, and then, where does it go? Thoughts are like clouds passing through the vast sky of your awareness. You are not the cloud. You are the sky in which the cloud appears. The thought I am not good enough is not a statement of fact about a solid self. It is a conditioned, temporary, impersonal, mental event. It is a storm cloud passing through. The fifth and final aggregate is consciousness. This is the raw faculty of knowing, the bare awareness that arises in conjunction with the other four aggregates. There is seeing consciousness, hearing consciousness, tasting consciousness, and thinking consciousness. It is the light that illuminates the objects of our experience. But even this consciousness is not a solid, singular soul or self. It is dependent. Seeing consciousness cannot arise without an object to be seen. Hearing consciousness cannot arise without a sound to be heard. It is not a monolithic entity, but a flickering process, arising and passing away from moment to moment with our experiences. So when we look for a self, we find only these 5 flowing processes, and this is the key that unlocks the prison of I am not enough. That belief requires a solid, unchanging I to be the target of the judgment. It needs to identify with one of these aggregates. I am not enough because my body is not perfect. I am not enough because I have anxious feelings. I am not enough because I have these negative thoughts. The wisdom of anatta shows us that we have made a mistake. We have mistaken a fleeting process for a solid entity. The target of our self-criticism is a phantom. It is an illusion created by the mind. When you truly see this, who is left to judge? Who is left to be not enough? The entire edifice of self-judgment collapses because it has no foundation to stand on. There is a famous story that illustrates this perfectly. A sage named Nagasena was visited by a powerful Greek king, Melinda. The king, a sharp intellectual, wanted to test the sage's wisdom. He asked, "What is your name, venerable sir?" The sage replied that he was known as Nagasena, but that this was just a convenient name, a label, as there was no permanent person to be found. The king was incredulous. He challenged him, saying, "If there is no person, who is it that wears these robes and eats this food?" Nagasena, calm and wise, turned the question back on the king. He pointed to the king's magnificent chariot and asked, "Your Majesty, did you walk here, or did you arrive in a chariot?" The king proudly said, "He arrived by chariot." Nagasena then asked, "Your Majesty, please tell me, what is a chariot? Is it the wheels?" "No," said the king. "Is it the axle? Number? Is it the frame, the yoke, the reins?" The king had to answer no to each question. Nagasena then declared, "Then, Your Majesty, there is no chariot." The king was forced to concede that chariot is simply the name we give to the collection of parts, assembled and working together. It has no independent existence apart from its components. Nagasena then smiled gently and said, "Just as chariot is a convenient name for the collection of its parts, so Nagasena is a convenient name for this collection of the 5 aggregates. There is no permanent self to be found within them. To understand this is not to lose yourself. It is to find true freedom. When you are not your thoughts, you are free from their tyranny. When you are not your body, you can have compassion for its aging and its pains without it defining you. When you cease to identify with success and failure, you can live more boldly, more creatively, more joyfully. The sting of criticism lessens, and the inflation of praise becomes transparent. The hard, sharp edges of the separate self begin to soften, allowing for a deeper sense of connection with all of life. You realize that you are not a lonely island, but a wave in a vast and beautiful ocean. This is the beginning of right understanding. It is the profound relief of taking a weight off your shoulders that you never even knew you were carrying. And as we see that this self is a flowing, dynamic process, a natural question arises. If the self is in constant flux, what about everything else? This insight into our own nature opens the door to an even wider, more universal truth, the next great step in our journey of seeing things as they truly are. We have turned the bright light of inquiry inward, investigating the very nature of the self that feels so solid, so continuous, and often so insufficient. And in that light, we discovered not a solid entity, but a flowing, shimmering process. We found not a noun, but a verb. We found the 5 aggregates, a river of physical sensations, feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and moments of consciousness, all arising and passing away with breathtaking speed. This insight into anatta, or not self, is the first great pillar of wisdom, and it naturally opens the door to the second. For if this intimate sense of I is a dynamic, ever-changing process, what about everything else? What about our joys, our sorrows, our relationships, our world? The wisdom of the Buddha invites us to widen our lens, to look out from our own deconstructed self and recognize the same flowing, impermanent nature in all of existence. This recognition is the teaching of anicca, or impermanence. Anicca is the universal law of change. It is the simple but profound truth that nothing is fixed. Everything is in a state of flux. Look at the grandest scales imaginable. Mountains are not static entities. They are being pushed up by tectonic forces and simultaneously worn down by wind and rain over eons. Stars are born in fiery nebulae, shine for billions of years, and then die in spectacular explosions. Civilizations rise, flourish, and eventually crumble into dust and memory. The entire cosmos is a relentless dance of arising changing, and ceasing. Now bring that lens closer to your own life. Your body, as we have seen, is in constant flux. Your relationships evolve and change. The person you were to your parents as a child is different from the person you are to them today. The weather changes from moment to moment. The cells in a leaf on a tree are changing. The very breath you are taking right now is a perfect lesson in anicca. It arises, it sustains for a moment, and it passes away, creating the space for the next breath. But nowhere is the truth of anicca more immediate, more observable, and more relevant to our inner peace than in the landscape of our own mind. Your thoughts, feelings, and moods are the most fleeting phenomena in the universe. Think about it. A moment of happiness arises, perhaps from a fond memory. It feels wonderful, but does it last? Number, it passes. A wave of sadness or frustration washes over you, perhaps from a difficult interaction at work. It can feel all-consuming, as if it will last forever. But does it? Number it. 2. Eventually subsides. A thought about what to have for dinner appears and is just as quickly replaced by a flicker of anxiety about a future event, which is then replaced by the sound of a bird outside your window. The mind is a waterfall of transient experiences. It is a sky through which clouds of every shape and color drift endlessly. If change is such a fundamental, universal law, why does it cause us so much pain? Why does it keep us awake at night? The suffering comes not from the fact of change itself. The suffering comes from our resistance to it. We try to live as if the law of impermanence does not apply to us. We try to build a permanent home on shifting sands. This resistance primarily takes 2 forms. The first is clinging, or attachment. When we experience something pleasant, a moment of joy, a feeling of success, the love of another person, a sense of peace, we grasp it. We try to freeze that moment in time. We build a dam in the river of experience, desperately trying to hold on to that water. This clinging creates a constant, low-grade tension. We are always afraid of losing what we have, because deep down, we know that everything changes. We cannot enjoy the warmth of the sun without simultaneously fearing the coming of the clouds. The second form of resistance is aversion, or pushing away. When we experience something unpleasant, a difficult emotion, like fear or anger, a painful memory, a physical discomfort, we fight it. We try to build a wall to block the river's flow. We declare, "I don't want this. This shouldn't be here." This battle is utterly exhausting. By pushing against the unpleasant feeling, we give it our full attention and energy, which only makes it stronger. Our resistance is the very thing that fuels its power over us. The sleepless mind is a mind in a state of total war with anicca. It is clinging desperately to the idea of a peaceful, untroubled state, while simultaneously fighting a vicious battle against the thoughts and feelings of anxiety that are actually present. It refuses to accept the reality of the present moment, because the present moment is uncertain, uncontrollable, and always changing. The attempt to find a solid, permanent footing in the flowing river of the mind is the very definition of a futile struggle. There is a timeless Taoist story that perfectly illustrates the wisdom of accepting impermanence. A wise old farmer lived in a small village. One day, his only horse, which he used for plowing his fields, ran away. His neighbors all came to console him. "Oh, what terrible luck," they said. The farmer simply replied, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" A week later, the horse returned, and it brought with it a herd of 10 wild, beautiful horses. The neighbors came to celebrate. "What incredible good luck," they exclaimed. The farmer just shrugged and said, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" The next day, the farmer's son was trying to tame one of the wild horses when he was thrown off and broke his leg. The neighbors came to offer their sympathy. "How awful! This is truly bad luck." The farmer again replied, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" A few weeks later, the emperor's army marched through the village, conscripting every able-bodied young man for a war they were fighting, a war from which few would return. They took the sons of all the farmer's neighbors, but they left his son alone because of his broken leg. The neighbors, weeping, came to the farmer. "You were right. Your son was spared. It was good luck after all." And the farmer, looking out at his fields, simply said, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" This farmer embodies the wisdom of Anicca. He does not get caught up in the temporary labels of good or bad, because he understands that the nature of life is to change. He lives in a state of wise acceptance, knowing that he cannot see the whole picture from his limited vantage point. To embrace Anicca is to cultivate this same wisdom. It does not mean becoming passive or giving up. It means engaging with life fully, but without being attached to the results. It means we can work hard for a goal, but if we fail, we are not destroyed, because we know that failure is a temporary state. It means we can love deeply, but without the desperate clinging that suffocates joy, because we appreciate the preciousness of the present moment. The liberation that comes from this acceptance is immense. When a wave of anxiety arises in the middle of the night, instead of fighting it, you can change your relationship to it. You can meet it with the quiet understanding, "Ah, here is anxiety. I know you. You are a visitor, not a permanent resident. You are a cloud passing through the sky of my mind. This, too, shall pass." This recognition robs the anxiety of its terror. It is no longer a solid monster, but a transient weather pattern. This practice also allows us to savor the good moments more deeply. Knowing that a moment of joy is fleeting, we don't waste our energy trying to grasp it or photograph it into permanence. Instead, we can inhabit it fully, grateful for the beautiful, temporary gift that it is. We can drink from the river without trying to own it. To understand with our intellect that everything changes is a profound and important first step. It is to see the truth clearly on the map we have been given. But to be truly set free by this truth, we must learn to experience it directly, in our own bodies, in our own minds, from moment to moment. We need more than just a map. We need a method for navigating the terrain. We need a tool that allows us to sit on the bank of the river of experience and watch the flow go by, without being constantly swept away by its powerful currents. We need a way to cultivate the calm, steady presence of the wise farmer. This tool, this practice of becoming the gentle witness to the unfolding of our own lives, is the very heart of the Buddha's path of mental cultivation. It is the beginning of the training in samadhi. It is the practice of right mindfulness. We have explored the great, universal truths of not-self and impermanence. We have seen that the I we cling to is a flowing process, and that the world it inhabits is a river of constant change. Intellectually, this can be understood. But how do we live this truth? How do we stop being tossed about in the chaotic currents of our own experience, especially in the dark of night, when the waters of the mind are wild and treacherous? The Buddha provided a tool. It is not a complicated piece of machinery. It is as simple as our own breath, as close as our own skin. This tool is the practice of sati, or as it is known in English, mindfulness. It is the seventh factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, and it is the very heart of the training in mental discipline. There are many complex definitions of mindfulness, but the most useful and practical one is this. Mindfulness is paying attention, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. Let us unpack that simple sentence, for within it lies the entire key to calming a restless mind. First, paying attention on purpose. This is not a passive state of zoning out. It is an active, conscious, and deliberate choice. You are choosing to place your attention somewhere, rather than letting it be hijacked by every passing thought, memory, or worry. It is the gentle but firm act of training the mind, like training a puppy. The puppy will wander off 1,000 times, and your job is not to scold it, but to gently, kindly lead it back, again and again. This leading back is the active part of mindfulness. Second, in the present moment. This is the refuge. A mind that cannot sleep is a mind that is lost in time. It is a time traveler. It journeys back into the past, replaying regrets, reopening old wounds, analyzing what could have been. A mind lost in the past is a mind prone to depression. Or it rockets forward into the future, rehearsing for potential disasters, planning for 100 different scenarios, trying to control what is fundamentally uncontrollable. A mind lost in the future is a mind consumed by anxiety. The past is a memory. The future is a fantasy. The only place you can ever truly live, the only place where peace can be found, is right here, right now, in the present moment. Mindfulness is the practice of returning home to the now. It is dropping the anchor of your awareness into the only ground that is real. Third, and this is the most crucial part, non-judgmentally. This is what infuses the practice with warmth and compassion. This is what separates mindfulness from mere, cold concentration. As you pay attention to the present moment, you will notice many things. You will notice your breath. You will notice physical sensations. And you will notice thoughts, feelings, and moods. A non-judgmental attitude means you observe these things without labeling them as good or bad. When you notice you have been lost in thought for 5 minutes, you don't say, "I'm terrible at this. I can't meditate." You simply, gently notice, thinking has been happening. And then you guide your attention back to your anchor, perhaps the breath. When a feeling of anxiety arises, you don't push it away or condemn it. You meet it with a quiet curiosity. This is the feeling of anxiety. I can feel a tightness in my chest, a quickening of my heart. How interesting. This kind, impartial observation is revolutionary. It stops the cycle of the second arrow. You are no longer fighting with your experience. You are simply allowing it to be what it is. Many people come to mindfulness with a deep misunderstanding. They believe the goal is to empty the mind or to stop thinking. They try to force their thoughts to cease, and when they inevitably fail, they become frustrated and give up, believing they are incapable of it. This is a tragic mistake. You cannot stop your mind from thinking any more than you can stop your heart from beating. The mind's job is to produce thoughts. The goal of mindfulness is not to stop the thoughts. The goal is to change your relationship to them. It is to learn to sit on the riverbank and watch the boats of thought float by, without having to jump onto every single one and be carried away downstream. You become the sky, vast and open, which allows the clouds of thought to drift through without disturbance. There is immense freedom in this. So how do we practice this? Especially when we are lying in bed, feeling restless. We start by choosing an anchor for our attention, an object in the present moment to rest upon. The most reliable and universally available anchor is the breath. Simply bring your attention to the physical sensations of breathing. You might feel the cool air entering your nostrils, and the warm air leaving. You might feel the gentle rise of your abdomen on the in-breath and the soft falling on the out-breath. You don't need to change your breathing or control it in any way. Just rest your awareness on these simple physical sensations. When your mind wanders into thought, which it will, just notice that it has wandered and then gently, without any scolding, escort it back to the breath. Each return is a small victory of presence. Another anchor is the body itself. Lying in bed, you can bring your attention to the points of contact between your body and the mattress. Feel the weight of your head on the pillow. Notice the sensation of the blankets on your skin. Can you feel a tingling in your toes or a warmth in your hands? This practice draws your awareness out of the chaotic, abstract world of thinking and grounds it in the solid, tangible reality of your physical body. Or you can practice with sound. Simply open your awareness to the soundscape of your room. Listen to the hum of a fan, the creak of the house, a distant car. Receive these sounds as pure vibrations, without needing to label them or judge them as pleasant or annoying. The sound of a siren is no longer an irritation. It is simply sound, arising and passing away in your awareness. There is a famous Zen story that captures the power of this practice. A man is being chased by a ferocious tiger. He runs to the edge of a cliff, and seeing no other escape, he grabs onto a thick vine and swings himself down over the edge. As he hangs there, he looks up and sees the tiger snarling at him from above. He looks down and sees another tiger waiting for him on the ground below. His situation is hopeless. To make matters worse, he sees two mice, one white and one black, emerge from a crevice and begin to gnaw on the very vine he is holding. He knows that soon the vine will break. His life is hanging by a thread, caught between the tigers of the past and future, while the mice of day and night eat away at his existence. In this moment of absolute terror, he notices something. Growing out of the cliff face, just within his reach, is a single wild strawberry, red and luscious. With his one free hand, he reaches out, plucks the strawberry, and puts it in his mouth. The story ends with a simple line. How sweet it tasted. This is mindfulness. Even in the face of inevitable difficulty and impermanence, it is always possible to find the sweetness of the present moment. The strawberry is always here, in this breath, in this sensation, right now. To practice mindfulness is the ultimate act of embodying the truth that you are enough. It is to say to yourself, with your attention, that this moment is enough. This breath is enough. This sensation, whether pleasant or unpleasant, is enough. It does not need to be different. It does not need to be improved. By resting in the present moment without demanding that it change, you are stepping off the frantic treadmill of becoming. You are ceasing the war with your own experience. You are finally, truly coming home. This practice of clear, non-judgmental seeing is a profound tool for generating peace. But sometimes, mindfulness can feel a bit cool, a bit detached. To bring deep healing to the wounds of a lifetime of self-criticism, we need to add another quality. We need to infuse this clear seeing with an active warmth. Having learned to watch the storm with clarity, we must now learn how to offer a gentle, loving embrace to ourselves, the one who is experiencing the storm. This is where the path of the heart begins. This is the practice of loving kindness. We have learned to sit on the riverbank of our own minds, using the anchor of mindfulness to watch the flow of experience go by. We have become the calm, impartial witness to our own thoughts, feelings, and sensations. This is a practice of immense power. It creates space. It brings clarity. It stops us from being swept away by the currents. But this clear seeing, this sati, is only one wing of the bird of freedom. For the bird to truly fly, it needs another wing, one of warmth, softness, and affection. Having learned to observe the person struggling in the storm of their own mind, we must now learn how to offer that person a kind word, a gentle embrace, and unconditional friendship. We must learn to become our own best friend. This practice, the cultivation of a warm and open heart, is called metta, or loving kindness. For most of us, especially in the quiet of the night, there is a voice in our heads, and it is not the voice of a friend. It is the voice of an inner critic, a harsh and relentless judge. It is the voice that keeps a running tally of all our mistakes, all our failures, all our shortcomings. It whispers, "You shouldn't have said that. You are not smart enough. You are lazy. You will never be good enough." This inner critic is the greatest enemy of sleep. It is the architect of the anxiety that keeps us tossing and turning. Imagine trying to fall asleep in a room where someone is standing over you, endlessly pointing out your flaws. It would be impossible. Yet, this is the inner environment that many of us inhabit every single night. We are under constant attack from ourselves. Metta is the direct antidote to this poison. It is not about fighting the inner critic or arguing with it. It is about cultivating a different voice, a new voice, a voice that is so warm, so steady, and so compassionate that the harsh whispers of the critic begin to lose their power, eventually fading into the background like a distant, irrelevant noise. The practice of metta begins with a radical act, one that our culture often mistakes for selfishness or narcissism. It begins by directing loving kindness toward yourself. We are often taught that it is noble to be hard on ourselves, that self-criticism is the engine of improvement. The wisdom of the Buddha teaches the exact opposite. Constant self-judgment does not lead to growth. It leads to fear, anxiety, and paralysis. You cannot hate yourself into a version of yourself that you can love. True healing and growth arise from a foundation of acceptance and kindness. To offer yourself compassion is not selfish. It is a necessary prerequisite for a sane and happy life. You cannot pour water from an empty cup. You cannot offer genuine love and friendship to others if you are in a state of constant civil war with yourself. To make peace with yourself is the greatest gift you can give not only to yourself, but to everyone you interact with. So how do we practice this? How do we learn to speak to ourselves with a new voice? We can begin right now. As you are lying here, let your body be as comfortable as possible. Take a few gentle breaths, and then see if you can generate a feeling of warmth in your heart. It might help to think of someone or something that you love easily and without complication. It could be a beloved pet, a child, a grandparent, or a dear friend. Picture them and feel the natural, warm, affectionate feeling that arises in your chest. Just rest in that feeling for a moment. This is the raw material of metta. Now, we are going to perform the radical act of turning that warmth inward, directing it toward ourselves. We do this by silently repeating a series of simple, heartfelt phrases. The phrases are not magic spells. They are seeds that we plant in the soil of our heart. Let's begin with the first phrase. Silently, gently, offer this to yourself. May I be safe. This is a wish for protection from both outer and inner harm. A wish to be safe from danger and safe from the attacks of your own critical mind. Repeat it gently. May I be safe. Now, the second phrase. May I be happy. This is not a wish for fleeting pleasure, but for a deep and genuine happiness that comes from a peaceful heart. A wish for your own true well-being. Gently repeat it to yourself. May I be happy. The third phrase is, may I be healthy. This is a wish for the well-being of your body, a wish for strength, for vitality, and for freedom from pain. Acknowledging this body as a precious vehicle for your life. May I be healthy. And the fourth phrase, may I live with ease. This is a wish for grace and peace as you navigate the inevitable challenges of life. It is not a wish for a life with no problems, but for the inner resources to meet those problems with courage, resilience, and a calm heart. A wish for peace. May I live with ease. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. You can continue to repeat these phrases silently, letting them be as soft as a lullaby. You don't need to force any particular feeling. Some days, you will say the words and feel a great rush of warmth. Other days, you might say them and feel nothing but the harshness of your inner critic, telling you that you don't deserve it. That's okay. Your only job is to plant the seeds. Your only job is to make the offering. The intention itself is what matters. You are actively choosing to replace a habit of self-criticism with a new habit of self-kindness. The Buddha once taught that holding on to anger toward another person is like picking up a hot coal with the intention of throwing it at them. In the end, you are the one who gets burned first. The same is profoundly true for our relationship with ourselves. Harboring thoughts of self-judgment, self-hatred, and resentment toward yourself is precisely the same act. You are holding a hot coal against your own heart, all day, every day, and then you wonder why you feel burned, why you feel pained, why you cannot find peace. The practice of metta is the gentle, courageous act of uncurling your fingers and putting down the hot coal. It is the simple, compassionate decision to stop harming yourself. It is the greatest act of self-preservation you can possibly undertake. When you practice this regularly, something beautiful begins to happen. The cup of your own heart begins to fill up, and once it is full, it naturally begins to overflow. You find that it becomes easier and more natural to offer these same wishes to others. You can bring to mind a loved one and offer them the same phrases. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Then you can expand the circle to a neutral person, someone you don't have strong feelings about. And eventually, with practice, you can even learn to extend this warm-heartedness to people you find difficult. You begin to see that their difficult behavior, like your own, comes from a place of suffering, from a heart that is also thirsty for happiness and peace. This practice of loving kindness creates a safe and warm sanctuary inside of you. It becomes the new voice of your inner landscape, a constant, gentle hum of friendliness that underlies all of your experience. But creating a safe harbor does not mean that storms will never again appear on the horizon. Life will still bring challenges. Painful emotions and difficult thoughts will still arise. The question then becomes, when these storms do come, how do we, as our own best friend, relate to them? How do we hold these difficult experiences without being capsized? Having learned to cultivate a friendly heart, we must now learn the wisdom of holding all of our experiences, even the painful ones, within that heart. This leads us to the profound practice of radical acceptance. We have begun the beautiful, courageous work of becoming our own best friend. With the practice of metta, we have started to cultivate a new inner voice, one of warmth, kindness, and unconditional affection. We have started to build a safe harbor within our own hearts, a place of refuge from the relentless attacks of the inner critic. This is a profound shift. It changes the very foundation of our inner world from one of conflict to one of friendship. But building a safe harbor does not prevent storms from ever appearing on the horizon of our lives. Life in its very nature, is unpredictable. Despite our best efforts, we will still experience moments of fear, waves of sadness, flashes of anger, and the cold grip of anxiety. The existence of these feelings is not a sign that our practice has failed. It is simply a sign that we are alive and human. The crucial question, then, is not how to banish these storms forever. The crucial question is, now that a storm has arrived, how do we meet it? As our own best friend, how do we hold ourselves when we are feeling overwhelmed, scared, or broken? Our habitual reaction, deeply ingrained, is to go to war. When an unpleasant emotion like anxiety appears, our first instinct is to fight it. We declare it an enemy. We say, "Go away. I don't want you here. You are ruining my peace." We try to suppress it, to push it down into the basement of our minds and lock the door. We try to distract ourselves from it with entertainment, with food, with work, with anything, to avoid feeling what we are feeling. This is the energy of aversion, of vibhavatana, the thirst for non-existence, applied to our own inner life. But this war is unwinnable, and it is utterly exhausting. Trying to suppress an emotion is like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It takes immense effort. And the moment you relax your guard, the ball erupts to the surface with even greater force than before. This internal battle, this constant pushing and pulling, is a primary source of the tension that robs us of our rest. You cannot be at peace while you are at war with yourself. The alternative, offered by the Buddha's wisdom, is as radical as it is simple. It is the practice of acceptance. Now, acceptance is a word that is easily misunderstood. It does not mean resignation. It does not mean apathy or weakness. It does not mean that you like the feeling of anxiety or that you approve of the state of sadness. It certainly does not mean condoning harmful behavior in yourself or others. Radical acceptance is simply the courageous and compassionate act of acknowledging what is true in the present moment without resistance. It is dropping your end of the rope in the tug of war with your feelings. It is the willingness to say yes to the reality that this feeling, this thought, this sensation is currently present in your experience. It is a simple, clear recognition of what is. This practice is not just an intellectual idea. It is something you do with your body and your breath. When a wave of anxiety rolls in as you lie in bed, the first step is to simply notice it with the clarity of mindfulness. The second step is to locate it in your body. Where does this anxiety live? Is it a tightness in your chest, a hollow feeling in your stomach, a buzzing energy in your hands and feet? Instead of trying to make that physical sensation go away, the practice of acceptance invites you to turn toward it. Can you breathe into that tightness in your chest? Can you allow the knot in your stomach to simply be there without needing it to dissolve immediately? Can you make space for the physical energy of the emotion? This is a profound act of kindness. You are ceasing hostilities. You are signaling to that wounded, scared part of yourself that it is allowed to exist. You are allowing yourself to be fully human, with the entire spectrum of human emotions. The great Vietnamese Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh, offered a beautiful and powerful metaphor for this practice. He taught us to treat our strong emotions like a mother treats her crying baby. Imagine a mother in her home, and she hears her infant begin to cry in the other room. What does a good mother do? She doesn't scream at the baby, "Stop crying. You are disturbing my peace." She doesn't put her hands over her ears and pretend the baby isn't there. And she doesn't stand at a distance, analyzing the reasons for the crying and number. She immediately goes to her child. She picks the baby up, gently, and holds it in her arms. She embraces the baby. She soothes it with her presence. The simple act of holding the crying child is the expression of her love and compassion. Thich Nhat Hanh taught that we must learn to do this with our own difficult emotions. When anger arises, we can learn to say, "Hello, my little anger. I see that you are here. I will take good care of you." We use our mindfulness to pick up the emotion, to recognize its presence clearly, and we use our loving kindness, our metta, to hold it, to embrace it with a non-judgmental, compassionate presence. We cradle our anxiety in the arms of our awareness. We hold our sorrow with tenderness. We are not trying to immediately stop the crying. We are simply offering our full, kind, and loving presence to the part of us that is in pain. And here lies the great paradox of change. What we resist persists. What we fight grows stronger. But what we embrace with acceptance, we can transform. When you stop fighting your anxiety and instead hold it like a crying child, it begins to lose its terrifying power. It is no longer a monster to be slain, but a vulnerable part of you that needs care. The enormous amount of energy you were spending on suppressing and fighting is now liberated. That energy can now be used for healing. When an emotion is fully seen, acknowledged, and held in a space of non-judgmental awareness, it naturally begins to run its course. Like a cloud that is allowed to be a cloud, it will eventually drift by. Like a wave that is allowed to be a wave, it will crest, break, and recede back into the ocean. By accepting the storm, you allow it to pass. So when you are lying in bed and the familiar feeling of dread or worry begins to arise, see if you can try this different approach. Don't turn away. Don't fight. Turn toward it. Acknowledge its presence. Ah, hello anxiety, my old friend. I feel you in my stomach. And then offer it the embrace of your awareness. Breathe with it. Allow it to be there. Know that you are the vast, loving sky, and it is just a temporary cloud. You are the wise mother, and it is just a crying child in your arms. This practice of embracing your inner world with radical acceptance is profoundly healing. It is the end of the inner war, but our restlessness is often fueled by another war, one that we wage not against our inner feelings, but against the outer world. It is fueled by our desperate attempt to control the future, to manage outcomes, and to force life to unfold according to our plans. Having learned to hold our inner states with an open and friendly hand, we must now learn to apply that same wisdom to the events and circumstances of our lives. We must learn the subtle, courageous, and liberating art of letting go. We have learned to turn inward with a heart of friendship. We have learned the courage to sit with our most difficult feelings, holding them with the gentle, non-judgmental embrace of a mother holding her child. This practice of radical acceptance ends the civil war within our own being. It is a profound source of peace, but our sleepless nights are often fueled by another kind of war, a war we wage not against our feelings, but against life itself. This is the war of control. It is the deep-seated belief that our peace and happiness depend on our ability to manage outcomes, to solve every problem, to bend the future to our will, and to ensure that the unpredictable river of life flows exactly within the narrow banks we have constructed for it. This constant, exhausting effort to control the uncontrollable is a defining feature of the anxious mind, and learning to relax this effort is the next great step toward freedom. This is the art of letting go. To speak of letting go can be confusing. It can sound like apathy, like laziness, or like giving up on our dreams and responsibilities. This is not at all what it means. The wisdom of letting go is not about ceasing to act. It is about learning to distinguish between healthy effort and neurotic attachment. It is the subtle but life-changing art of planting seeds without demanding that the fruits grow in a particular way, at a particular time. Imagine a skilled archer. She practices her art with great dedication. She pays meticulous attention to her stance, her posture, the way she holds the bow, the tension in the string, and the quality of her breath as she prepares to shoot. All of these things are within her control. Her effort is focused, intentional, and wholehearted. But the moment she releases the arrow, her control ends. She cannot control the sudden gust of wind that might arise. She cannot control the subtle shifts in humidity that might affect the arrow's flight. The arrow has been loosed. A wise archer, having given her best effort, lets the arrow go and accepts the result, whatever it may be. A foolish archer tries to follow the arrow with her mind, screaming at the wind, willing it to fly true. Her struggle is useless and only creates inner turmoil. Too often, we are the foolish archer in our own lives. We do our work, we say our piece, we make our plans, and then we spend hours, days, or weeks mentally following the arrow. We run endless simulations in our minds, trying to anticipate and micromanage every possible outcome. What if my boss doesn't like the presentation? What if that person was offended by what I said? What if my plans for the weekend are ruined by bad weather? This mental habit of trying to control the future is a powerful engine of anxiety. It is like trying to nail jelly to a wall. It is an impossible, frustrating, and exhausting task because the future does not exist yet and is therefore, by its very nature, uncontrollable. Nowhere is this paradox more potent than in our relationship with sleep itself. The desire to sleep is a perfectly healthy, natural goal, but the attachment to that goal, the desperate, clenched thought that says, "I must fall asleep right now," is the very tension that makes sleep impossible. You are trying to force an act of surrender. It cannot be done. The art of letting go, when applied to sleep, means changing your definition of success for the night. Your job is not to achieve sleep. Your job is simply to rest. Your work is to allow your body to be heavy, to feel the support of the bed beneath you, to let your breath be natural, and to create the most peaceful inner conditions you can. Whether sleep arrives in 5 minutes, or in an hour, or not at all, is, in that moment, beyond your control. By releasing the attachment to the outcome of sleep, by letting go of the goal, you paradoxically create the perfect conditions of surrender and relaxation that invite sleep to arise on its own terms. You can only truly find sleep when you stop hunting for it. There is a classic Zen story that brilliantly illustrates the burden of not letting go. 2 monks, one senior and one junior, were on a long journey. They came to a river where the bridge had been washed away. A beautiful young woman, in fine silk robes, stood at the riverbank, looking distressed, as she did not want to ruin her clothes by wading through the muddy water. The monks' vows were very strict. They were forbidden from touching a woman. The junior monk, seeing the situation, stood back, feeling conflicted but righteous in his observance of the rule. The senior monk, however, simply walked up to the woman and without a word, lifted her into his arms, carried her across the turbulent river, and gently set her down on the other side. He then bowed slightly and continued on his way. The junior monk was speechless with horror. He rushed to catch up, his mind a whirlwind of judgment. For hours, he walked behind his senior, seething. He replayed the scene over and over. How could he do that? He broke a sacred vow. What a terrible monk! Finally, as evening approached, he could not contain his agitation any longer. He burst out, "Brother, I cannot believe what you did back there. We are forbidden from touching women. and you picked one up and carried her in your arms. How could you break your vows like that? The senior monk stopped, looked at his junior with genuine puzzlement, and said with a gentle voice, "Brother, I left that woman by the riverbank hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This story reveals a profound truth. We are so often the junior monk. We carry our resentments, our worries, our failures, and our anxieties with us long after the actual event has passed. We cling to them, replaying them in our minds, allowing them to poison our present moment and steal our peace. Letting go is the act of becoming the senior monk. It is the wisdom to address the situation at hand with compassion and clarity, and then to leave it where it belongs, in the past. It is the freedom of not burdening ourselves with things that are no longer our responsibility. You can practice this art of release in a simple, tangible way. As you prepare for bed, take a moment to acknowledge the worries and plans for tomorrow that are swirling in your mind. You might even write them down on a piece of paper. Then, as a conscious, symbolic act, imagine placing all of those worries into a box. Close the lid, and mentally place that box outside your bedroom door. You can tell yourself, "I will pick this box up in the morning. These concerns will be there for me then. But for tonight, this space is for rest. For tonight, I am letting them go." This simple act creates a sacred boundary. It is a declaration that for this period of time, your only job is to be present, to be kind to yourself, and to rest. You are giving yourself permission to put down the heavy bags you have been carrying all day. This practice of letting go, of releasing our tight grip on outcomes and on the baggage of the past, brings an incredible lightness and freedom to our being. It allows the mind to finally settle, like dust in a quiet room. It clears the inner landscape of the immense weight of control. And as our inner world becomes more spacious, more peaceful, and less cluttered, this transformation naturally begins to ripple outward. It begins to change how we show up in the world. And the very first place this inner peace often manifests is in the words that we speak. When we are no longer attached to being right, to winning arguments, or to managing other people's impressions of us, the very nature and quality of our speech begins to shift. It ceases to be a weapon or a tool of control, and it becomes, instead, an authentic expression of our newfound peace. This leads us directly to the next step on our path, the healing and foundational practice of right speech. As our inner world begins to shift, as we learn to hold our feelings with acceptance and our goals with a lighter grip, this transformation naturally seeks to express itself. We are not isolated islands of consciousness. We are beings in constant relationship with the world, and the primary bridge between our inner world and the outer world is our speech. The words we use are the most frequent and powerful way we shape our reality and the reality of others. Recognizing this, the Buddha placed right speech, or samavaka, as the first pillar of sila, or ethical conduct, on the Noble Eightfold Path. It is the practice of aligning the words that leave our mouth with our deepest intention for peace, both for ourselves and for others. It is the understanding that words are not just sounds, they are forces. They can be weapons that create wounds and agitation, or they can be medicine that brings forth healing and tranquility. The quality of our sleep is often a direct reflection of the quality of the words we have used and been exposed to throughout the day. The practice of right speech is traditionally understood through four main guidelines, four gates that a word should pass through before it is spoken. The first of these is to abstain from false speech. On the surface, this simply means not telling lies. And this is, of course, essential. When we speak untruths, we create a heavy psychic burden for ourselves. We must live in fear of being discovered. We must expend mental energy, remembering the details of our deception. This creates a state of inner division and anxiety, a dissonance that follows us into the quiet of the night. But abstaining from false speech goes deeper than just avoiding outright lies. It includes subtler forms of dishonesty. It means not exaggerating to make ourselves seem more important. It means not making promises we have no intention of keeping. It means presenting ourselves authentically, rather than curating a false image of a perfect life for others to see. To practice this is to commit to a life of integrity, where our inner reality and our outer expression are in harmony. A mind that rests in truth has nothing to hide, and therefore nothing to fear. It is a mind that can be at ease. The second gate is to abstain from divisive or slanderous speech. This is the kind of speech that sets one person against another. It is the act of carrying tales, of spreading gossip, of whispering a criticism of someone to a third party. When we engage in divisive speech, we are poisoning the well of human connection. We create an atmosphere of suspicion and distrust around us. And even if we are only passively listening to gossip, we are still participating in the unwholesome energy of it. This energy clings to us. When we lie down to bed, our mind may chew on the gossip we heard, feeling a subtle unease, a sense of participating in something unkind. We may worry about what others might be saying about us, just as we spoke about them. Divisive speech creates fractures in the community, and we, as part of that community, feel the instability in our own hearts. Right speech invites us instead to speak words that promote harmony, that encourage reconciliation, and that celebrate the good qualities in others. The third gate is to abstain from harsh speech. This is the speech of anger, of cruelty. It includes insults, yelling, belittling comments, and sarcasm that is intended to wound. When we speak from a place of anger, we are releasing a poison, first into our own system, and then into the world. The immediate aftermath of a harsh verbal exchange is a body flooded with stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. The heart pounds, the muscles are tense. This is a state of fight or flight, the absolute opposite of the state of rest and digest required for sleep. The emotional residue of that anger, the guilt from what we said, or the resentment from what was said to us, can vibrate within us for hours, replaying itself over and over in our minds. To practice abstaining from harsh speech is to commit to speaking with kindness and gentleness, even when we are disagreeing or setting a boundary. It is to recognize that compassionate communication is a gift we give not only to the other person, but also to our own nervous system. The fourth and final gate is to abstain from idle chatter. This is perhaps the most subtle and pervasive form of unskillful speech in our modern world. It is pointless, aimless talk that serves no real purpose other than to fill silence and distract the mind. It is the endless commentary on trivialities, the constant stream of information without substance, the verbal equivalent of junk food. It trains the mind to be scattered, restless, and constantly seeking stimulation from outside itself. A mind that has spent the day flitting from one piece of idle chatter to the next, both online and off, is a mind that has been conditioned for distraction. When night comes and the external stimuli are removed, that mind does not know how to be still. It continues to chatter, to jump from one trivial thought to another, because that is what it has been practicing all day. Right speech encourages us to value silence and to speak only when our words have purpose, meaning, and benefit. The quiet of the night is a powerful amplifier. The words of the day, all of them, echo in that silence. They come back to us. The small lie we told feels larger. The unkind gossip leaves a bitter taste. The harsh words we spoke fill us with a fresh wave of regret. Our mind chews on this undigested verbal food from the day, and it is this agitated chewing that keeps us awake. A day filled with mindful, compassionate speech, on the other hand, leaves the mind clean. There are no echoes of regret, no residue of harm. The conscience is clear, and a clear conscience is the softest pillow. Crucially, this practice of right speech is not just for our interactions with others. The most important person we practice it with is ourselves. The endless monologue inside our own head is where the most damaging speech often occurs. That inner critic is a master of harsh, false, and divisive speech. Think about it. Do you lie to yourself about your true feelings? That is breaking the first gate. Do you speak harshly to yourself, calling yourself names you would never dream of calling a friend? That is breaking the third gate. Do you engage in endless, pointless loops of worry and self-doubt? That is idle chatter, breaking the fourth gate. To apply right speech inwardly is a revolutionary act of self-love. It means committing to telling yourself the truth with kindness. It means refusing to speak to yourself with cruelty. It means learning to let go of the pointless inner chatter and to rest in a compassionate inner silence. There is a wonderful story about the ancient Greek philosopher, Socrates. One day, a man ran up to him, saying, "Socrates, I have to tell you something I just heard about one of your friends." Socrates held up his hand and said, "Wait, before you tell me, your news must pass through 3 sieves." The man was confused. Socrates explained, "The first sieve is the sieve of truth. Are you absolutely certain that what you are about to tell me is true?" The man thought for a moment and said, "Well, no, I just heard it from someone else." Socrates nodded. "All right, now it must pass through the second sieve, the sieve of goodness. Is what you are about to tell me something good or kind?" The man looked down. "No, actually, it's the opposite." Socrates continued. "And now, the third sieve, the sieve of usefulness. Is what you are about to tell me going to be useful to me or anyone else?" The man sheepishly replied, "No, not really." Socrates then looked at him and said, "So, if what you wish to tell me is not true, not good or kind, and not useful, why speak it at all?" This is the essence of right speech. It is a wise and compassionate filter for our communication. Our words create our world. They are not merely descriptive, they are creative. When we choose to speak words of truth, kindness, harmony, and purpose, we are actively creating a more peaceful environment around us. This peaceful external world then reflects back and nourishes our own inner state of peace. As we begin to align our words with our deepest longing for tranquility, a beautiful sense of integrity and wholeness emerges. The painful gap between what we feel inside and what we express outside begins to close. This newfound integrity then naturally seeks an even fuller expression, moving from the realm of our words into the realm of our physical presence in the world. It calls on us to examine not only what we say, but also what we do. This leads us to the next essential pillar of ethical living, the practice of right action. Our journey of healing now moves from the realm of words to the realm of deeds. As we cultivate an inner world of peace and an outer voice of kindness, this integrity seeks to express itself in the most tangible way possible. Through our physical actions, the way we move our bodies through the world, the choices we make, and the impact we have on those around us, all become part of our spiritual practice. This is the fourth factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, the second pillar of ethical conduct, known as right action or Samma Kammanta. It is the commitment to ensure that our actions are a source of peace, not agitation, for both ourselves and others. Just as our words from the day can echo in our minds at night, the memory and energy of our actions can either be a soothing balm or a bed of sharp stones upon which we try and fail to rest. The traditional formulation of right action is beautifully simple and direct. It consists of 3 fundamental abstentions. The first is to abstain from taking life, or more broadly, from harming living beings. This is the great principle of non-violence, or ahimsa. It is a commitment to move through the world with a gentle presence, recognizing that all beings, like ourselves, wish to be happy and free from suffering. In a modern context, this extends beyond just physical violence against others. It includes a commitment to not being cruel, to not acting with a carelessness that could endanger others, and importantly, to not harming ourselves through self-destructive habits or neglect. It is about fostering a deep respect for the sanctity of life in all its forms, which in turn fosters a deep sense of peace and reverence in our own heart. The second pillar of right action is to abstain from taking what is not given. This, on the surface, means not stealing, but its spirit encompasses all forms of dishonesty in our actions. It means not cheating in our business dealings, not taking credit for work that was done by someone else, not exploiting another person's trust for our own gain, and not consuming resources that are not rightfully ours. It is a deep and radical commitment to fairness, honesty, and transparency. To live this way is to live with nothing to hide. It is a commitment to building a life on a foundation of truth, rather than on the shaky ground of deception. The third pillar is to abstain from sexual misconduct. In our modern, secular world, this can be understood as a profound commitment to bringing mindfulness, respect, and kindness into our most intimate relationships. It means refraining from any sexual activity that is exploitative, coercive, or causes harm to ourselves or to others. It is about ensuring that our intimate connections are based on mutual consent, genuine care, and respect for the commitments we have made. It is the practice of honoring the vulnerability of both ourselves and our partners, ensuring that this powerful energy is a source of true connection and joy, not a source of pain, betrayal, and regret. These 3 guidelines are not arbitrary rules handed down from on high. They are a practical prescription for a peaceful mind. The immediate and most personal benefit of practicing right action is the gift of a clear conscience, and a clear conscience is the softest pillow in the world. When you come to the end of your day and lie down to rest, if you can look back on your actions and know that you have caused no intentional harm, that you have been honest in your dealings, and that you have respected the trust of others, then your mind has no fuel for agitation. There are no ghosts of past actions to rise up and haunt you in the dark. There is no guilt churning in your stomach, no shame making your face feel hot, no regret causing your heart to ache. The accounts of the day are settled and clean. The mind, feeling this deep sense of inner rightness and integrity, can finally, truly relax. It can let down its guard because it knows it has acted in alignment with its deepest values. Contrast this with the experience of a troubled conscience. The psychic weight of an unskillful action is immense. The memory of a betrayal, the guilt from a dishonest act, the shame of having caused someone pain, these are not small things. They are heavy burdens that we carry with us. They create a state of inner conflict and turmoil. In the silence of the night, the mind cannot escape from itself. It replays the harmful act, trying to justify it, trying to forget it, or wishing desperately that it could be undone. This churning is an exhausting, agonizing, and futile process, and it is the very murderer of sleep. A mind at war with its own past conduct cannot find the surrender necessary for rest. This direct link between our actions and our state of mind is at the heart of the Buddhist teaching on karma. This is another word that is often misunderstood in the West. Karma is not a system of cosmic reward and punishment meted out by some celestial judge. It is much simpler and more scientific than that. It is the universal, natural law of cause and effect. It is the law that every action has a consequence. The Buddha explained it with a simple agricultural metaphor. Our intentional actions, he said, are like seeds that we plant in the soil of our lives. An action motivated by kindness, generosity, and honesty is a wholesome seed. When we plant such a seed, it will, in its own time and under the right conditions, naturally bear a wholesome fruit, the fruit of trust, connection, friendship, and our own inner peace. An action motivated by greed, hatred, or cruelty is an unwholesome seed. When we plant a seed like that, it will inevitably bear an unwholesome fruit, the fruit of fear, isolation, distrust, and our own inner turmoil. Understanding this reframes the entire purpose of ethical conduct. We don't act ethically simply to be a good person or to follow rules. We act ethically because we are wise. It is an act of enlightened self-interest. We act with kindness because we understand that kindness is the seed of our own future happiness. We refrain from harm because we understand that harm is the seed of our own future suffering. We are the farmers of our own experience, and right action is the skill of planting a garden that will blossom with peace, rather than one that will be choked with the weeds of regret. This practice brings mindfulness directly into our daily lives. It becomes mindfulness in motion. We learn to pause, even for a split second, before we act. In that pause, we can ask ourselves, what is the intention behind this action? Is it coming from a place of kindness and clarity, or is it coming from a place of fear, anger, or greed? This simple, mindful check-in allows us to close the gap between the person we want to be and the way we actually behave in the world. As we begin to consistently align our actions with our compassionate heart, a profound sense of coherence and wholeness begins to permeate our being. We walk through the world with a lighter step, unburdened by the heavy ghosts of our own misdeeds. As this integrity deepens, it naturally leads us to examine the single most significant and time-consuming action that most of us perform every single day: our work. How can we bring these same principles of harmlessness and integrity into the very way we sustain ourselves? How can we ensure that the means by which we earn our living is not a source of inner conflict, but is instead another powerful expression of our path to peace? This brings us to the third and final pillar of ethical conduct, the vital practice of right livelihood. Our ethical practice has now expanded from our words to our deeds, creating a life of greater integrity and harmlessness. As we continue to widen the lens, we must bring this inquiry to the activity that occupies the majority of our waking hours and energy: our work. For most of us, our livelihood is the single greatest stage upon which our actions and speech play out. Therefore, a truly ethical life, a life conducive to peace, must include a conscious and mindful approach to how we earn our living. This is the fifth factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, and the third and final pillar of Sila, or ethical conduct. It is the practice of right livelihood, or Samma Ajiva. It asks us to consider whether the way we sustain ourselves is a source of peace and well-being, or a source of conflict and agitation for ourselves and for the world. The traditional understanding of right livelihood focuses on avoiding professions that cause direct and obvious harm. This includes work that involves dealing in weapons, in poisons, in the exploitation of other living beings, or in deceit. In our complex modern world, however, the spirit of this teaching invites a deeper inquiry. It asks us to look honestly at our work and consider its impact. Does our work contribute, even in a small way, to a more compassionate and healthy world? Or does it, perhaps subtly, contribute to the world's greed, delusion, or suffering? And just as importantly, what is the effect of our work on our own spirit? Does it nourish us, align with our values, and allow us to live with integrity? Or does it force us to compromise our principles, creating a painful and stressful split between the person we are at work and the person we aspire to be? This inner conflict, this dissonance between our values and our daily actions, is a vast and often unrecognized source of the chronic, low-grade anxiety that follows us home and keeps us from our rest. In our contemporary culture, there is a powerful force that works in direct opposition to the principles of right livelihood. This is the phenomenon often called hustle culture. It is the glorification of excessive work, the belief that our self-worth is measured by our productivity, our status, and our financial success. This mindset is the very antithesis of a peaceful life. It is founded on the endless thirst, the tanha, for more money, more recognition, more achievement. It actively encourages us to sacrifice our well-being, our sleep, our health, our relationships, our peace of mind on the altar of ambition. It often frames our colleagues not as fellow human beings, but as competitors in a race for success. Hustle culture is the deafening scream of the message, "You are not doing enough," the very message that fuels the feelings of inadequacy we are working so hard to heal. Right livelihood offers a gentle, sane, and revolutionary alternative. It suggests that how we work is just as important as what we achieve, and that no amount of external success is worth the price of our inner peace. For many of us, hearing this can cause anxiety in itself. We may feel trapped in a job that does not align with our values, but quitting is simply not a practical or responsible option. It is crucial to understand that practicing right livelihood does not always mean making a dramatic career change. More often, it is about making a radical change in our attitude and our approach to the work we already do. We can begin to practice right livelihood, right where we are. We can do this, first, by bringing mindfulness to our tasks. Instead of working with a scattered, stressed mind, constantly multitasking and thinking 5 steps ahead, we can practice focusing on one thing at a time. We can bring our full attention to writing an email, to listening to a colleague, to performing a physical task. Furthermore, we can make our workplace a field for the practice of right speech and right action. We can choose to interact with our colleagues with kindness and respect. We can refuse to participate in office, gossip, or cynical conversations. We can strive to be honest and helpful. We can look for the ways, even in a difficult or seemingly meaningless job, that our effort helps someone, somewhere. Focusing on the human element, on the potential for connection and service, can transform our experience of our work. And perhaps most importantly, we can practice right livelihood by setting firm and compassionate boundaries. This means making a conscious decision not to let work consume our entire identity. It means logging off at a reasonable hour. It means resisting the urge to check emails late at night. It means protecting our time for rest, for family, for friendship, and for our own inner practice. This act of setting boundaries is a powerful expression of self-respect. It is a declaration that our life is larger than our job title, Imagine two people hired to clear a forest. The first woodcutter is driven by wrong livelihood. His mind is fixed on the outcome, the number of trees he can cut, the amount of money he will make. He sees the forest only as a resource to be conquered. He works frantically, with a tense body and a scattered mind, always feeling behind, always pushing himself harder. He is at war with the trees, with the clock, and with his own exhaustion. At the end of the day, he is not only physically spent, but his mind is agitated and filled with the stress of his striving. The second woodcutter practices right livelihood. He knows he must cut the trees to earn his living, but he brings a different quality of attention to the task. He chooses to be present with the process of the work. With each swing of the axe, he feels the tool in his hands, the pull of the muscles in his back, the rhythm of his own breath. He notices the scent of the pine, the sound of the birds, the feeling of the sun on his skin. He is not fighting the forest. He is in a relationship with it. His work becomes a form of mindfulness in motion, a meditation. At the end of the day, his body is tired, but his mind is calm and clear. He has done his work with integrity and presence. He has earned his living without losing his peace. We all have the choice to be the second woodcutter, regardless of our profession. By weaving together the threads of right speech, right action, and right livelihood, we create a beautiful and durable fabric of integrity. This is the completion of the foundational training in Sila, or ethical conduct. We have built a life that is in harmony with our deepest values. We have done our best to cause no harm with our words, our deeds, or our work. This creates a profound sense of inner coherence, a life with a clear conscience. When we are no longer at war with the world or with our own daily conduct, the mind finally has a stable and peaceful ground upon which to stand. With this foundation now firmly in place, we are ready to turn our attention more fully inward. We are prepared to begin the second great training of the path, the direct cultivation of the mind itself. We will now learn how to develop the focus, strength, and resilience needed to weather any storm. This is the training of samadhi, or mental discipline, and it begins with the crucial practice of learning how to work wisely with our own inner energy through the practice of right effort. Having established a foundation of ethical conduct in our speech, actions, and work, we arrive at a place of relative inner and outer peace. Our conscience is clear, and the ground of our mind is stable. With this stability, we are now prepared to undertake the second great training of the path, samadhi, or the direct cultivation of mental discipline. This is where we move from clearing the ground to actively training the mind itself, developing its strength, focus, and resilience. The first step in this training, the sixth factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, is the practice of right effort, or samavayama. The word effort can be misleading for us. In a culture that glorifies struggle and equates effort with straining, we might imagine that this practice involves a kind of forceful, white-knuckled battle with our own minds. But right effort is the very opposite of this. It is not about trying harder, it is about trying wiser. It is the gentle, skillful, and intelligent application of our energy to guide the mind toward peace and away from agitation. The most helpful way to understand right effort is through the beautiful and practical metaphor of tending a garden. Imagine that your mind is a small plot of land that has been given to you. For most of our lives, we have been unconscious gardeners. We have let the winds of chance blow whatever seeds they carry into our garden. We have allowed weeds of anxiety, resentment, and fear to grow wild, choking out everything else. We have neglected to intentionally plant any seeds of peace, joy, or kindness. The practice of right effort is the decision to become a conscious, loving, and skillful gardener of this inner landscape. This practice has 4 distinct, yet interconnected, activities. The first of the 4 great efforts is the effort to prevent unwholesome states from arising. A wise gardener does not simply wait for weeds to appear and then spend all their time pulling them. They take preventative measures. They build a fence to keep out animals that might trample the beds. They lay down mulch to stop weed seeds from finding fertile soil. In our practice, this means guarding our senses. It means making conscious choices about what we allow into our minds. For example, if we know that watching a violent or stressful news report right before bed tends to fuel our anxiety, right effort is the wisdom to choose not to watch it. If we know that engaging in a contentious argument online leaves our mind spinning for hours, right effort is the choice to disengage. This is not about hiding from the world. It is the skillful and compassionate act of protecting the delicate environment of our own mind, creating the conditions where peace is more likely to grow. The second effort is to abandon unwholesome states that have already arisen. Despite our best preventative efforts, weeds will still sprout in the garden. This is inevitable. An anxious thought will arise. A surge of irritation will appear. When this happens, a foolish gardener might get angry and start hacking at the weed, scattering its seeds everywhere. Or they might ignore it, pretending it isn't there, allowing it to grow stronger and deeper roots. A wise gardener does neither. They mindfully see the weed for what it is, and then they gently, but firmly, pull it out from the root. In our practice, when an unwholesome thought like, "I'll never get to sleep, tomorrow will be a disaster," arises, we first recognize it with mindfulness. Then, we apply this second effort. We abandon the thought. This doesn't mean suppressing it with force. It means skillfully replacing it. We gently withdraw our attention from the anxious thought and place it somewhere else, like on the physical sensation of our breath. We let the weed of worry wither from a lack of attention. The third great effort is the effort to cultivate wholesome states that have not yet arisen. A good gardener is not only focused on removing what is negative, they are passionately dedicated to cultivating what is positive. They don't just have a weed-free garden. They have a garden full of beautiful flowers, nutritious vegetables, and fragrant herbs. They actively plant the seeds of what they want to grow. In our mental garden, this means deliberately bringing to mind wholesome states. Lying in bed, instead of letting the mind drift into worry, we can intentionally plant a seed of gratitude. We can bring to mind 3 things from the day for which we are genuinely grateful. We can practice metta, planting the seeds of loving kindness for ourselves. We can recall a happy memory and allow the feeling of joy to permeate our body. This is a proactive practice. We are not just waiting for happiness to happen to us. We are actively creating the conditions for it, nourishing our minds with positive and skillful mental food. The fourth and final effort is to maintain the wholesome states that have already arisen. Once the gardener's flowers have begun to bloom, their work is not over. They must continue to tend to them, to water them, to give them sunlight, and to protect them so they can grow strong and flourish. In the same way, when a wholesome state like peace, contentment, or joy arises in our minds, we often barely notice it before it's gone. This fourth effort encourages us to do the opposite. When you notice a moment of genuine peace, savor it. Rest your attention in it. Feel it fully in your body. When a feeling of love or kindness for yourself arises during your metta practice, don't rush on to the next thing. Linger with that feeling. Give it your full, warm attention. By doing so, you are strengthening that positive neural pathway. You are watering the flower, helping it to grow more robust and to blossom more frequently in the future. This fourfold practice is a complete strategy for transforming the mind. It is how we move from being a passive victim of our mental states to an active and empowered cultivator of our own well-being. When applied to the challenge of sleeplessness, its utility is immediate and profound. You are lying in bed, and the familiar weed of worry sprouts. I am still awake. I am failing at this. You apply the 4 efforts. First, you recognize the thought, mindfulness. Then you apply right effort. You abandon this unwholesome thought by gently turning your attention away from it. You then cultivate a wholesome state by, for instance, placing your attention on the feeling of the soft blanket against your skin, or by planting the seed of a metta phrase, "May I be peaceful." And if a feeling of peace does arise, even for a moment, you maintain it by resting your full attention there. It is so important to remember that the quality of this effort is gentle, patient, and persistent. The wise gardener does not work with frantic, violent energy. They work with a steady, loving hand. So too, our right effort should feel like a kindness, not a struggle. It is the gentle, unwavering effort of a mother guiding her beloved child, not the harsh, demanding effort of a drill sergeant. Through this wise and balanced practice of gardening the mind, we become the conscious creators of our own inner world. But any gardener knows that success depends on a delicate balance. Too much water, and the plants drown. Too little, and they wither. Too much sun, and they scorch. Too little, and they become weak. This raises the crucial question for our own practice. How do we apply this effort? How much is too much, and how much is too little? How do we find the skillful, graceful balance between tense striving on the one hand and lazy complacency on the other? To answer this, we must turn to one of the most central and profound teachings of the Buddha, the great wisdom that guides the entire path. We must learn to walk the journey of transforming our mind is a path of conscious cultivation, of becoming a wise gardener of our inner world. We have seen that this requires right effort, the skillful application of our energy, to encourage the growth of peace and to let go of agitation. But this immediately raises a vital question. How much effort is the right amount? Any gardener knows that their success depends on a delicate balance. Too much water will drown the most beautiful flower. Too little will leave it to wither. Too much sun will scorch its leaves. Too little will stunt its growth. The same is true for our inner work. If we strive with too much intensity, with a tight, grasping mind, our practice becomes another source of stress and anxiety. But if our effort is too lax, too lazy, we will make no progress, and our mental garden will remain overgrown with weeds. Finding the answer to this question of balance is not just a detail of the path, it is the central, guiding principle of the entire journey. It is the wisdom of walking the middle way. The teaching of the middle way, or Majjhima Patipada, was born directly from the Buddha's own life experience. His search for an end to suffering was a dramatic exploration of 2 failed extremes. First, he lived the life of a prince, surrounded by every imaginable form of sensual pleasure. He had beautiful palaces, fine clothes, delicious food, music, and entertainment. He was shielded from every sight of sickness, old age, and death. He lived at one extreme, the path of constant gratification. Yet, he found that this did not lead to lasting happiness. Beneath the surface of all the pleasure, there was a subtle, gnawing unease, a fear that all of it could be lost, and a sense that something fundamental was missing. He realized that seeking happiness through endless sensual indulgence was a gilded cage, not a path to freedom. So, he abandoned that life and went to the opposite extreme. He became a wandering ascetic, practicing severe self-mortification. He subjected his body to incredible hardships, fasting until he was little more than a skeleton, holding his breath until he felt excruciating pain, sleeping on beds of thorns. He believed, as many did at the time, that by crushing the body and denying its every need, he could force the spirit to be free. But this path also failed. He found that a weakened, tortured body only led to a weakened, agitated mind. He could not think clearly. He had no energy. His mind was consumed by the pain and deprivation. He had simply exchanged the cage of indulgence for the cage of self-torment. It was only when he collapsed from exhaustion and accepted a simple meal of rice and milk from a village girl that he had his great insight. He realized that both extremes were unproductive. The true path to liberation was not to be found in either sensual pleasure or self-hatred, but in a balanced, intelligent path between them. It was the middle way. These two extremes are not just ancient historical concepts. They are alive and well, and they are the primary ways that our modern, restless minds attempt to deal with the underlying feeling of not being enough. When we feel that deep sense of lack, we tend to swing violently between two poles. The first is the modern form of asceticism, self-torment. This is not about fasting in a forest. It is about relentlessly whipping ourselves with the inner critic. It is the voice of hustle culture that tells us to work until we burn out, sacrificing our health and peace to prove our worth. It is the obsessive dieting or punishing exercise regimens that are rooted in a hatred of our own bodies. It is the grim, joyless self-discipline that believes we must suffer to be worthy. This entire pole is driven by the logic, I am not enough, so I must punish and deprive myself until I become enough. The other extreme is modern indulgence. This is not the luxury of a prince, but the frantic attempt to numb the inner emptiness with external things. It is compulsive shopping to get a temporary hit of pleasure. It is binge-watching an entire series on a screen to avoid being alone with our own thoughts. It is scrolling endlessly through social media, seeking distraction and validation. It is using food, alcohol, or drugs to quiet the voice of anxiety. This pole is driven by the logic, I feel empty and I am not enough, so I must consume something, anything, to fill this void. Both of these paths are dead ends. Both are expressions of tanha, the thirst that can never be quenched. They are two sides of the same coin of suffering, rooted in the inability to simply be with ourselves, with kindness and balance. The middle way is the path of kind discipline. It is not a weak compromise between the two extremes. It is a wise and courageous path that transcends them both. It means caring for our body, giving it nourishing food, adequate rest, and healthy movement, not out of vanity or obsession, but out of simple respect for it as the precious vehicle for our life. It means caring for our mind, nourishing it with wholesome practices like mindfulness and metta, while also setting boundaries to protect it from the constant influx of noise and stimulation. It means engaging with our work and our life with diligence and energy, but also knowing when to rest, when to play, and when to be still. The middle way understands that rest is not the enemy of effort. It is its essential partner. It is the fallow season that allows the soil to replenish itself. It is the pause between the notes that creates the music. There is a beautiful story that perfectly captures this teaching. One of the Buddha's monks, a man named Sona, had been a skilled lute player before he ordained. He was practicing meditation with incredible, fierce determination, pushing himself to the point of exhaustion, but he was making no progress. He became deeply discouraged and considered giving up and returning to his old life. The Buddha, sensing his struggle, went to visit him. He asked, "Sona, I understand you were a fine musician in your lay life. Tell me, when you were tuning your lute, if you made the string too tight, would it produce a beautiful sound?" Sona replied, "No, venerable sir. The string would be sharp and shrill, and it would likely break." The Buddha then asked, "And if you made the string too loose, would it produce a beautiful sound?" Sona said, "No, venerable sir. It would be slack and make almost no sound at all." The Buddha looked at him with kindness and said, "In the same way, Sona, energy that is too strained and tight leads to restlessness and agitation, and energy that is too lax and loose leads to laziness and sloth. You must tune the instrument of your practice just as you tuned your lute. You must find the pitch that is not too tight and not too loose, but is just right. That is where the beautiful music of peace can be played. Our own Byanga body, our heart, our mind is this instrument. The middle way is the art of learning how to tune it. For our problem of sleeplessness, this is the key. The mind caught in an extreme cannot rest. It is either too tight straining, worrying, analyzing, trying to force sleep to happen, or it is too loose giving up in frustration and falling into the black hole of endless distraction on a phone, numbing itself for hours. The middle way for sleep is to tune the instrument correctly. It is to practice gentle discipline by creating the outer conditions for rest, and then to release the striving. It is to lie in bed with a mind that is both relaxed and aware, alert but not anxious. This wisdom of the middle way is the great regulator for our entire practice. It is the compass that keeps us from veering off the path into the ditches of excess on one side or deficiency on the other. It is how we learn to tune the instrument of our being so that it can finally play the beautiful, harmonious music of peace. With this guiding principle of balance as our constant companion, we are now ready to look more closely at the most powerful and accessible tool we possess for developing a mind that is both relaxed and focused, both gentle and strong. We will return to the anchor that is with us in every moment of our lives and learn to use it not just for momentary mindfulness, but for building a deep and unshakable concentration. We will now learn the ancient, profound art. With the wisdom of the middle way as our guide, we have learned to tune the instrument of our being, avoiding the extremes of harsh striving and lazy indifference. We now have a principle of balance, but to put that principle into practice, we need a focal point. We need a reliable, unwavering anchor that can hold us steady as we develop the mind's capacity for calm, focused energy. This anchor is not something exotic or difficult to find. It has been with you from the moment of your birth and will be with you until your final moment. It is the breath. We now turn to the most fundamental and profound meditation practice taught by the Buddha, the cultivation of mindfulness of breathing, known in Pali as anapanasati. This is the art of using the simple, rhythmic process of breathing to calm the body, quiet the mind, and build a foundation of unshakable peace. Why the breath? What makes this simple, biological function such a powerful tool for transformation? Firstly, it is always available to us. It is free. It requires no special equipment, and it is with us in every situation. Whether we are in a quiet room or a noisy city, the breath is there, a constant potential refuge. Secondly, the breath is always in the present moment. You cannot breathe in the past, nor can you breathe in the future. To be aware of your breath is, by definition, to be in the now. It is an instant cure for the time-traveling mind that gets lost in regrets about yesterday or anxieties about tomorrow. Thirdly, the breath is the bridge between our conscious and unconscious worlds. between our mind and our body. It happens automatically, without our control, yet we can also influence it consciously. This unique quality makes it a perfect place to observe the interplay of our inner states. And finally, the rhythm of the breath is intrinsically calming. A slow, gentle breath sends a powerful signal of safety and peace throughout our entire nervous system. The instructions for this practice are beautifully simple. As you are lying in bed, allow your body to be comfortable and at ease. There is no need for a special posture. Simply let go of any unnecessary tension. Then, gently, without any force, invite your attention to rest on the physical sensations of your own breathing. You are not trying to think about the breath, you are trying to feel it. To begin, you might choose one specific spot as your anchor point. For many, this is the tip of the nostrils. You can feel the subtle sensation of the cool air entering as you breathe in, and the slightly warmer air passing out as you breathe out. For others, a more stable anchor is the abdomen. You can place a hand gently on your belly and feel the soft rising on the in-breath and the gentle falling on the out-breath. Choose one of these spots and let your attention rest there, as if it were a butterfly landing softly on a flower. Your only job is to observe. You do not need to control your breath, to make it deeper, or to change its rhythm. Simply allow it to be as it is. If it is shallow, let it be shallow. If it is deep, let it be deep. The practice is pure observation, pure reception. You can use a simple, silent mental note to support your awareness. Breathing in, breathing out, or even more simply, in, out. Now, something will happen. It is guaranteed. Your mind will wander. A thought will arise. A memory will surface. A sound will catch your attention. And suddenly, you will realize you haven't been paying attention to the breath for several minutes. This is the most important moment of the practice. This is not a failure. It is not a mistake. It is the moment of awakening. It is the moment you have a chance to train the mind. When you notice that your mind has wandered, your task is to do two things. First, acknowledge where it went, without any judgment. Thinking about work. Second, gently and kindly, like leading a lost puppy back home, escort your attention back to the physical sensations of the breath. That is the entire practice. The wandering, the noticing, and the gentle returning. Each time you do this, you are strengthening the muscle of your attention. You are performing a rep in the gymnasium of the mind. This simple act has a profound effect on your physical body. Our nervous system has two main branches. The first is the sympathetic nervous system, our fight or flight response. It is activated by stress, fear, and worry. It floods our body with adrenaline, increases our heart rate, and tenses our muscles, preparing us for battle. A mind that cannot sleep is a mind stuck in this activated state. The second branch is the parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest response. It is the state of calm, healing, and restoration. Consciously paying attention to the slow, rhythmic nature of the breath is one of the most direct and effective ways to manually switch from the fight or flight system to the rest and digest system. As you rest your attention on the breath, your heart rate naturally begins to slow, your blood pressure drops, your muscles begin to relax. Your body receives the powerful, biological message. You are safe. The battle is over. You can power down. This is the physiological gateway to sleep. There is a wonderful Buddhist analogy for this process of taming the mind. Imagine a wild water buffalo, full of restless, powerful, and chaotic energy. This is our untrained mind. A farmer wishes to tame this buffalo. He doesn't try to wrestle with it head-on. He would surely be defeated. Instead, he uses a strong rope and ties the buffalo to a sturdy, wooden post that has been driven deep into the earth. At first, the buffalo is enraged. It pulls and strains against the rope, running to its full length in every direction. It bellows and thrashes about, trying with all its might to break free. It is a tremendous, violent struggle, but the post is strong and deeply rooted. It does not yield. After some time, exhausted and realizing its efforts are futile, the buffalo finally gives up the fight. It lies down at the foot of the post and rests peacefully. In this analogy, our wild, untamed mind is the buffalo. The sturdy post, deeply rooted in the present moment, is the breath. The rope is our mindfulness, our gentle attention. When we first try to tie our wild mind to the breath, it will struggle. It will pull away with thoughts, memories, plans, and worries. It will seem like an impossible task, but if we are patient, if we trust the strength of the post, and if we just keep gently bringing the mind back to the breath, something remarkable happens. The mind eventually grows tired of the struggle. It realizes it can't wander endlessly, and it finally settles down, finding its peace and its rest right there, at the foot of the post, in the simple, present reality of the breath. As we practice this simple art of returning, again and again, the inner storm begins to subside. The frantic, chaotic energy of the mind gives way to a quiet, stable, and lucid presence. We have found a place of refuge within ourselves, an anchor that can hold us steady in any storm. From this newfound place of inner stability and peace, our entire perspective begins to shift. When our own suffering has been quieted, we find that we can hear the world more clearly. We naturally begin to notice the struggles and suffering of others, not with fear or pity, but with a new clarity and an open heart. The peace we have cultivated for ourselves becomes a resource we can now extend outward. Our personal journey toward tranquility opens the door to a universal compassion. This leads us from the mind to the heart, to the tender practice of karuna, the compassionate wish for all beings, including ourselves, to be free from suffering. The simple, steady rhythm of the breath has brought us to a place of inner stillness. We have found the anchor, the calm center in the midst of the storm. From this stable ground, we can now open the doors of the heart and look out upon the world with new eyes. A mind that is no longer consumed by its own agitation has the capacity for a much deeper and more authentic connection with others. When our own suffering begins to quiet down, we can finally begin to truly hear the suffering of the world. This movement from inner peace to an open heart is the practice of karuna, or compassion. It is the second of the 4 great divine abodes, or sublime states of heart. And it is a powerful medicine for the anxiety that keeps us feeling isolated and alone. It is helpful to distinguish compassion, karuna, from its close cousin, loving kindness, or metta. Metta is the radiant wish for all beings, including ourselves, to be happy. It is like the sun, wishing to shine its warmth on everyone and everything without discrimination. Karuna, on the other hand, is the heart's direct response to the sight of suffering. It is what happens when the sun of metta shines upon the reality of pain. The ancient texts describe it as a trembling or quivering of the heart. It is the tender, aching wish for a being to be free from its pain. If metta is the wish, may you be happy. Karuna is the wish, may you be free from your suffering. It is not pity, which often contains a subtle sense of superiority. Compassion is born from a recognition of equality. You are suffering. and I know what it is to suffer. We are in this together. The practice of compassion is one of the most powerful antidotes to the self-absorption that lies at the root of so much of our anxiety. A mind that cannot sleep is often a mind trapped in a very small, dark room. The walls of this room are papered with my problems, my fears, my failures, and my worries. The mind circles endlessly around its own story, magnifying every personal trouble until it fills the entire universe. It is an intensely lonely and claustrophobic state. The practice of karuna is the act of intentionally opening the door of this small room and looking outside. We deliberately turn our attention away from our own narrative and contemplate the struggles of others. We might bring to mind a friend who is going through a painful illness, a family member struggling with financial hardship, or even people we don't know who are caught in conflict or poverty on the other side of the world. When we do this, a remarkable shift happens. Our own suffering doesn't necessarily disappear, but it is put into perspective. It becomes contextualized. We see our personal pain as one small part of the vast, universal ocean of dukkha. Our heart breaks, but it breaks open. The rigid walls of our self-pity and isolation begin to dissolve. We realize, in a very visceral way, that we are not alone in our struggle. This feeling of shared humanity, of connection in the face of life's difficulties, is a profound source of comfort and a powerful balm for the anxious heart. This practice can be done simply as you lie in bed. You can begin by generating compassion for yourself. Acknowledge your own suffering, the pain of sleeplessness, the anxiety, the fear. Hold this suffering in your heart as you would hold a small, wounded bird, and offer yourself the gentle wish: may I be free from this suffering. May I find peace. Once you have established this foundation of self-compassion, you can expand the circle. Bring to mind someone you care about who is having a difficult time. Picture them clearly and extend the same heartfelt wish to them. May you be free from your pain. May you be free from your sorrow. May you find peace. Then, you can widen the circle even further to include all beings everywhere. Thinking of those in hospitals, those who are lonely, those who are afraid, and with a broad, open heart, you can offer the universal wish: may all beings everywhere be free from suffering. Perhaps the most challenging and ultimately most liberating aspect of this practice is learning to extend compassion to those who have harmed us. Our natural instinct when someone hurts us is to wish for them to suffer, to hold on to our anger and resentment. But the wisdom of compassion invites us to look deeper. It asks us to consider that unskillful and harmful actions almost always arise from a place of deep suffering. People who are genuinely happy and at peace do not go around causing harm. Hurt people hurt people. The person who betrayed you, the person who spoke to you with cruelty, was acting out of their own inner poison, their own fear, their own greed, their own delusion. Their harmful action was a symptom of their own inner hell. To practice compassion is to try to see this. It is to wish for them to be free from the very inner suffering that caused them to act in such a way. This is not about condoning their action or absolving them of responsibility. It is about freeing ourselves. Holding on to hatred is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It corrodes our own heart and destroys our own peace. Compassion is the act of putting down this poison, of releasing ourselves from the heavy, exhausting burden of our own resentment. There is a powerful ancient story that illustrates this journey from isolated grief to universal compassion. A young woman named Kisa Gautami lived in the time of the Buddha. Her first and only child died, and she was driven mad with grief. She refused to believe he was gone, and she carried his small body through her village going from house to house, begging for a medicine that could bring him back to life. Some people mocked her, others turned away, but one kind person suggested she go and see the wise man, the Buddha. She went to him, laid her child at his feet, and pleaded for a cure. The Buddha listened with immense compassion and told her, "There is only one medicine that can help you. You must go back into the village and bring me a single mustard seed. But it must be from a house where no one and no parent, no child, no spouse, no servanthus ever died." Filled with a desperate hope, Kisagutami went from door to door. At the first house, she asked for a mustard seed, and the family was happy to give it to her. But when she asked if anyone in that house had ever died, they looked at her with sadness and said, "We have. We lost our beloved father just last year." She went to the next house, and the next. The story was always the same. "Please, take all the mustard seeds you want, but our dear mother died here. We lost our youngest child in this house. The living are few, but the dead are many." As she went from house to house, her frantic personal grief began to change. She began to see that her own unbearable loss was not unique to her. It was the shared, universal experience of all human beings. The wall of her personal sorrow, which had isolated her from the world, began to dissolve into the great ocean of human suffering. She was no longer alone. Her heart broke open with a vast compassion for all people. Realizing the truth, she returned to the Buddha, no longer seeking a magic cure, but with a heart that was ready to understand. This tender heart of compassion, of karuna, connects us to our shared humanity in the face of pain. It is the great cure for the illusion of our isolated suffering. But life is not only composed of suffering. There is also joy, success, beauty, and good fortune in the world. To cultivate a truly balanced and resilient heart, we must learn not only to weep with those who weep, but also to celebrate with those who celebrate. We must learn to counteract the poisons of jealousy and comparison with a genuine, selfless happiness for the good fortune of others. This leads us to the next of the 4 great heart practices, the beautiful and liberating quality of sympathetic joy, or mudita. Our hearts have begun to open. We have learned, through the practice of compassion, to connect with our shared humanity in the face of suffering, dissolving the walls of our own isolated pain. This is a profound and necessary healing, but a heart that is only open to sorrow is a heart that is only half alive. Life is not only a story of pain, it is also a story of joy, of success, of beauty, and of profound good fortune. To cultivate a truly resilient and balanced heart, one that can embrace the fullness of the human experience, we must learn not only how to weep with those who weep, but also how to rejoice with those who rejoice. We must practice the third of the 4 divine abodes, the beautiful and liberating quality of mudita, or sympathetic joy. This is the selfless and genuine happiness we feel for the good fortune of others, and it is the direct antidote to 2 of the most potent poisons of the modern mind, jealousy and comparison. In our culture, we are conditioned from a very young age to have a comparison mind. We are taught to constantly measure ourselves against others, our successes against theirs, our appearance against theirs, our possessions against theirs. This habit creates a constant, low-grade sense of competition and scarcity. And in the age of social media, this comparison mind has been put on steroids. We spend our time scrolling through a carefully curated highlight reel of other people's lives, their perfect vacations, their career triumphs, their happy relationships, and we compare all of this to the messy, unedited, behind-the-scenes reality of our own life. This is a perfect formula for generating chronic dissatisfaction. It is a constant reinforcement of the painful belief, I am not enough, When we see someone else succeed or experience happiness, this comparison mind often gives rise to the painful emotion of jealousy or envy. Jealousy is a tight, contracting, and bitter feeling. It is a toxic cocktail of desire for what another person has, mixed with ill will toward them for having it. It whispers, "It's not fair. Why them and not me?" This state of mind is incredibly agitated. It is a state of deep unrest, and it is a powerful obstacle to peace. When we lie in bed, consumed by envy, replaying another person's success and our own perceived lack, sleep is impossible. We are burning ourselves with the hot coal of resentment. Mudita, sympathetic joy, is the cooling water that extinguishes this fire. It is the radical and liberating practice of choosing to celebrate rather than compare. It is based on the profound understanding that happiness is not a limited resource. It is not a pie where, if someone else takes a large slice, there is less left for you. The truth is that joy is an abundant, infinite quality, and the more of it there is in the world, the better it is for everyone. Like the other heart practices, mudita is a quality we can intentionally cultivate. You can practice it right now. Begin by bringing to mind someone you love dearly, perhaps a child or a very close friend. Now, think of something genuinely wonderful that has happened to them. Perhaps they achieved a lifelong dream, fell in love, or simply experienced a moment of pure, unadulterated joy. As you picture their happiness, try to feel it with them. Let their smile bring a smile to your own face. Feel the warmth of their success in your own heart. Consciously choose to celebrate for them, without any thought of yourself. Simply rest in that shared feeling of happiness. This is the basic taste of mudita. Now, you can expand the practice. Bring to mind a colleague or an acquaintance. Perhaps you hear that they have received a promotion or an award. The habitual reaction might be a pang of envy or a feeling of being left behind. Instead, see if you can consciously shift your perspective. Acknowledge the old, habitual reaction, and then gently let it go. In its place, try to plant the seed of mudita. Think, how wonderful for them. They worked hard for that. May they enjoy their success. I am happy that they are happy. This may feel artificial at first, but with practice, it becomes more natural. You are retraining your mind to move from a default mode of competition to a new default mode of celebration. The most advanced practice of mudita is to try to extend it towards someone whose success normally triggers your deepest feelings of jealousy, perhaps a perceived rival. This is very difficult work, but instead of indulging the usual story of resentment, you can simply acknowledge the reality. This person is experiencing happiness. And then you can ask yourself, would I rather that another being in the universe experience happiness or suffering? When seen from this larger perspective, the choice is clear. You can, even if just for a moment, wish them well. May their happiness continue. This practice is not for their benefit. It is for yours. It is the act of freeing yourself from the painful, self-imposed prison of envy. There is a simple and beautiful metaphor for this practice. Imagine a single candle burning steadily and brightly in a vast, dark room. This candle represents one person's happiness and success. Now, imagine that thousands of other candles, all unlit, are brought into the room. The single flame from that first candle is then used to light another, and another, and another. One by one, the entire room begins to fill with a warm, brilliant light. Now, consider the original flame. In the act of lighting thousands of other candles, did its own light diminish in any way? Did it lose any of its warmth or its brightness? In fact, the opposite happened. Its light was not reduced. It was multiplied 1,000-fold. Its own brightness is now reflected back to it from every corner of the room. The entire space is more beautiful, warmer, and more brilliant because it shared its flame. So it is with happiness. To celebrate the success of another does not diminish your own. It does not take anything away from you. It simply adds to the total amount of light, of joy, of well-being in the world. And a world with more joy in it is a better world for everyone, including you. To practice mudita is to decide that you want to be a source of light, to be one who celebrates the light in others, rather than one who curses it from the shadows. This practice frees you from the exhausting and painful work of comparison. It multiplies your own opportunities for happiness, because now you can delight in the good fortune of every person you meet. Your heart becomes lighter, more expansive, and more joyful. And a joyful, open heart is one that can rest deeply and peacefully. With loving kindness metta, we have learned to be a true friend to ourselves. With compassion, karuna, we have learned to open our hearts to the reality of suffering. And with sympathetic joy, mudita, we have learned to celebrate the reality of happiness. These three practices create a heart that is incredibly open, responsive, warm, and engaged with the fullness of life. But to be able to hold all of these vast and sometimes contradictory experiences, our own joy and sorrow, and the joy and sorrow of others, without being constantly thrown off balance, we need one final quality. We need a deep foundation of stability. We need an unshakable equilibrium that can contain this vast, open heart, so that we are not drowned by compassion or carried away by joy. This is the fourth and final divine abode, the crowning wisdom of the heart practices. This is the profound practice of equanimity, or upekkha. Our hearts are now open. We have learned to be a friend to ourselves with loving kindness, to connect with the world's pain through compassion, and to celebrate its joy through sympathetic joy. Our heart is alive, engaged, and responsive to the fullness of life. But an open heart in a turbulent world can also be a vulnerable one. To be able to hold all of life's experiences, the beautiful and the painful, our own and those of others, without being constantly thrown off balance, our heart needs a foundation. It needs a quality of profound stability, a deep and unshakable center of gravity. This is the fourth and final of the divine abodes, the great balancing factor and the crowning jewel of the heart practices. It is the practice of upekkha, or equanimity. Equanimity is perhaps the most subtle and profound of these qualities. It is often misunderstood as being a state of indifference, of cold detachment, or of emotional numbness. But true equanimity is none of these things. It is not about not caring. In fact, it is the quality that allows us to care most deeply and effectively. Equanimity is a deep, abiding, and spacious balance of mind. It is the ability to meet the unfolding experiences of life with an even, steady, and non-reactive presence. It is the inner poise that allows us to remain upright and at peace, no matter which way the winds of fortune may be blowing. It is the quiet, wise, and powerful art of letting be. The primary training ground for equanimity is our encounter with what the Buddha called the 8 worldly winds. These are the pairs of opposites that blow upon us constantly throughout our lives, threatening to throw us off balance. They are pleasure and pain, gain and loss, praise and blame, and fame and disrepute. An ordinary, untrained mind is like a leaf caught in these winds. When the wind of praise blows, we are lifted high into elation. When the wind of blame blows, we are dashed to the ground in despair. When we experience gain, we are ecstatic. When we experience loss, we are devastated. Our inner peace is completely dependent on external circumstances, forever rising and falling with the unpredictable weather of life. This constant reactivity is a major source of our stress and turmoil. A mind cultivated in equanimity, however, is not a leaf. It is a great mountain. The power of equanimity does not come from forceful suppression or from pretending not to care. It arises naturally from the soil of wisdom, from a deep, experiential understanding of the truths we have already explored. It is rooted in our understanding of anicca, impermanence. Because we know that everything changes, we are not so easily swayed. When the pleasant wind of praise comes, we can enjoy it, but we don't cling to it, because we know it is a temporary, fleeting sound. When the unpleasant wind of blame comes, it is still uncomfortable, but we are not destroyed by it, because we know that this, too, shall pass. Our peace is no longer contingent on receiving only the pleasant winds. Equanimity is also rooted in our understanding of anatta, not self, because we know that there is no solid, separate, unchanging me at the center of our experience. We don't take the worldly winds so personally. The praise is not directed at a permanent, real me that is inherently wonderful. The blame is not an indictment of a permanent, real me that is inherently flawed. Praise and blame are simply impersonal events, arising and passing away in the vast open space of awareness. When we stop identifying with them, they lose their power to control our emotional lives. We are no longer a target for the arrows of the world. Imagine a great, ancient mountain. It has stood for millions of years. Fierce winds howl against its slopes. Torrential rains lash its granite face. Lightning cracks across its peaks, and heavy snows blanket it in ice. In the summer, the hot sun beats down upon it relentlessly. Through all of this, through every kind of weather imaginable, the mountain remains utterly, profoundly, unshaken. It does not get angry at the storm. It does not get arrogant in the sunshine. It does not complain about the cold. It simply is. It allows all the weather of the world to happen, to come and to go, while its own essential nature remains stable, grounded, and at peace. This is the mind of equanimity. Our thoughts, our feelings, and the events of our lives are the weather. Our cultivated awareness, rooted in wisdom, is the mountain. This profound balance is what allows our love and compassion to become truly wise and sustainable. Without equanimity, our compassion can easily turn into what is sometimes called idiot compassion. We become so overwhelmed by the suffering of another that we drown in it, alongside them, becoming helpless and adding to the suffering. Without equanimity, our loving kindness can turn into anxious, possessive clinging. Our happiness becomes entirely dependent on the well-being and safety of our loved ones, a fragile state that is a source of constant fear. Equanimity is the spaciousness that allows us to love fully, to care deeply, and to help generously, but without losing our own center. It allows us to offer our assistance to someone without being attached to whether or not they take our advice. We can love our children with all our hearts, while also respecting their freedom to make their own choices and their own mistakes. We are engaged, we are connected, we are warm-hearted, but we are not knocked over. This is true freedom in relationship, both with others and with life itself. This state of unshakable balance is the ultimate condition for a peaceful night's sleep. A mind with equanimity is not rehearsing arguments, reliving praise, fearing future loss, or clinging to past gains. It is at rest. It is open, allowing, and spacious. It has made peace with the unpredictable nature of reality. It has found a home within itself that cannot be disturbed by the passing storms of the world. It is a mind that can truly let go, because it knows that its fundamental well-being does not depend on anything external. Equanimity, then, is the quiet pinnacle of the path of the heart and mind. It is the deep peace that arises, not from controlling the world, but from seeing it clearly and meeting it with a balanced and open heart. It is the ultimate guarantee for a mind that cannot be hijacked, the final ingredient for a truly restful and restorative sleep, no matter what winds may be blowing in the world outside our window. We have now journeyed through the great teachings on wisdom and ethics. We have explored the profound practices of mental discipline and the cultivation of the heart. We have gathered all the tools we need to transform our inner world from a place of conflict to a place of peace. The final step on our journey tonight is to learn how to bring all of these threads together. We will now weave this wisdom and compassion into a simple, beautiful, and practical nightly ritual, a conscious process to guide the mind from the chaos of the day into the deep, healing sanctuary of a peaceful sleep. We have now traveled the great path of practice. We have explored the wisdom that illuminates the nature of our minds and the world. We have cultivated the ethical conduct that brings peace to our conscience. We have trained our hearts in the sublime qualities of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. We have gathered a rich collection of tools and insights. The final, practical step on our journey tonight is to weave these beautiful, separate threads into a single, coherent tapestry. We will now create a simple, gentle, and powerful ritual, a conscious sequence of practices designed to guide the mind and body from the busyness and complexity of the day into the profound sanctuary of a deep and peaceful sleep. Think of this not as another chore on your to-do list, but as a final, loving gift you offer to yourself at the end of each day. The first step in this ritual begins just before you get into bed. It is the ritual of letting go. Throughout the day, our minds accumulate a heavy burden of worries, plans, resentments, and obligations. If we carry this weight to bed with us, it is no wonder we cannot rest. This first step is a conscious act of setting that burden down. Find a quiet place to sit for just a few minutes with a pen and a piece of paper, and then perform a brain dump. Write down everything that is spinning in your mind. The list of things you need to do tomorrow, the conversation that is replaying in your head, the financial worry that is gnawing at you, the unresolved problem at work. Do not try to solve them. The purpose is not to find answers, but simply to get them out of your head and onto the paper. This is an act of right effort, of skillfully abandoning the unwholesome state of worry. When you feel you have written everything down, fold the paper. Now, as a conscious, symbolic act, place that piece of paper somewhere out of sight. You might put it in a drawer or on your desk in another room. As you do so, make a gentle intention. These concerns are for the me of tomorrow. The me of tonight has a different and very important job. The job of tonight's me is simply to rest. You have created a clear and compassionate boundary between the world of doing and the world of being. The second step is the ritual of arriving. Now you can get into bed. Let your body find a position of comfort and ease. And now, the practice is to arrive fully in this moment, in this place, in this body. This is the practice of right mindfulness. Begin by bringing your awareness to the simple, physical reality of your body. You might start at your feet. Can you feel the sensation of the blankets against them? Can you feel any warmth or coolness? or tingling. You don't need to change anything, just notice. Slowly, allow your awareness to travel up through your legs, your hips, your torso. Feel the gentle rhythm of your belly rising and falling. Feel your back and shoulders making contact with the mattress. Feel the weight of your body being completely supported. Let your attention rest on this feeling of being held, of being supported. There is nothing for you to do, nothing for you to hold up. You can let go. You can allow yourself to be heavy. You can surrender your weight to the bed, to the earth. You have arrived in the physical safety of the present moment. The third step is the ritual of friendship. With the body settled, we now bring our attention to the heart. We wrap ourselves in the warmth of metta, of loving kindness. This is the moment we directly counteract the inner critic and the feeling of not being enough. This is where we give ourselves explicit permission to rest. You can place a hand gently over your heart if you wish, and silently offer yourself these healing affirmations. I have done enough for today. Whatever was accomplished was enough. Whatever was left undone can wait. I have done my best. And then, I am enough. Right here, right now, just as I am. I do not need to be anything more. I do not need to fix anything right now. I am worthy of rest. And finally, you can offer yourself the 4 classic phrases of metta. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. Let these words be a gentle internal lullaby. You are creating an inner atmosphere of profound safety, acceptance, and love. You are becoming your own compassionate parent, tucking yourself into bed with words of kindness. The 4th and final step is the ritual of surrender. All the preparations have been made. The mind has been cleared. The body has arrived. The heart has been softened. There is nothing left to do. The final act is one of complete surrender, using the breath as your gentle guide. This is the practice of anapanasati combined with upekkha, equanimity. Gently bring your attention to the natural, unforced rhythm of your breathing. Feel the air come in. Feel the air go out. And now, release all goals. Your goal is not to fall asleep. That is striving. Your goal is simply to rest, to be present with this breath, and then the next, and then the next. You are at peace with whatever happens. If you fall asleep, wonderful. If you lie awake for a while, that is also fine. You are resting peacefully, and that is what matters. When you notice your mind has wandered into a thought, as it will, simply see it as a cloud drifting by, and then, gently, without any frustration, return your attention to the breath. The breath is your anchor. It is the steady post to which you have tied your mind. Each return is another gentle stroke, rocking your consciousness into stillness. Imagine your life is like a small boat, and each day you sail out onto the vast, unpredictable ocean of the world. You face all kinds of weather-bright sun and stormy squalls, fierce winds and dead calms. This is the work of your day. Now, as evening falls, your boat turns and makes its way back toward a quiet, protected harbor. That harbor is your bed, your sanctuary for the night. This ritual we have just practiced is the careful, loving process of mooring your boat for the night. The ritual of letting go is like casting off the heavy, waterlogged fishing nets of the day's worries, leaving them on the dock. The ritual of arriving is the moment the boat glides into the still, calm waters of the harbor, the engine cut, the silence descending. The ritual of friendship is like hearing the sound of a familiar, welcoming bell ringing softly from the shore, letting you know you are home and you are safe. And the final ritual of surrender, resting with the breath, is the act of tying the boat securely to the dock, allowing it to finally be still, to be held, and to bob gently and peacefully on the calm waters of the harbor throughout the long, restorative night. And so, in the safety of this inner harbor, held by our own wisdom and our own kindness, we can finally allow the gentle tides of the night to carry us into the deep, healing ocean of rest. Our journey of understanding is now complete. All that is left is to rest in this truth. Our long journey through the landscape of the mind has brought us, at last, to this quiet and peaceful shore. We began in the dark, in the lonely hours before the dawn, with a mind at war with itself, a mind caught in a fever of restlessness. We felt the profound spiritual ache of our time, the persistent, gnawing feeling of not being enough. We began by diagnosing this condition, giving it a name, dukkha, and seeing it not as a personal failure, but as a shared, universal truth. We then had the courage to look at its source, the insatiable thirst of tanha, the endless wanting for things to be different than they are. We saw how this thirst is the very engine of our discontent. But then, a great hope dawned. We learned that an end to this thirst is possible, that a state of cool, clear peace, nirodha, is within our reach. We were given a map, the Noble Eightfold Path, a complete guide to walk us from the shores of suffering to the land of liberation. We have learned to see the world and ourselves with new wisdom, recognizing the truths of not self and impermanence. We have learned to align our actions and our words with a heart of kindness, building a life of integrity. We have learned to tame the wild energy of the mind, to cultivate a heart of boundless compassion, and to rest in the unshakable balance of equanimity. We began with a question born of pain. Why can I not find peace? We have arrived at an answer born of wisdom. The core message of this entire journey is as simple as it is profound. Peace is not a destination you must struggle to reach. It is not an achievement to be won. It is your mind's natural state, the state that reveals itself when you finally stop struggling. The rest you seek is not a prize for a mind that has solved all its problems. It is the natural, effortless surrender of a mind that has made peace with its own beautiful, imperfect, and ever-changing nature. And the key that unlocks this state of peace, the truth that allows the striving to cease, is the deep experiential realization that you are, and have always been, enough. This is not a phrase to be repeated as a hollow mantra. It is a fact to be discovered. When you know, in your bones, that you are whole and complete just as you are, the thirst for more, the thirst to be different, simply runs out of fuel, and a mind that is no longer thirsty, a mind that is no longer at war, is a mind that can finally, truly, rest. You now have the tools. You have the map. You have the understanding. This is no small thing. It is a gift of immense power. It means you are no longer a helpless victim of your own racing thoughts. You are the gentle gardener of your mind, the wise captain of your own boat. There may still be nights when the seas are rough. The practice is not one of perfect, uninterrupted bliss, but the difference is that now you know how to navigate the storm. You can meet the waves of anxiety, not with fear and resistance, but with mindfulness, compassion, and the quiet strength of equanimity. You have a refuge, an anchor, a safe harbor within your own being. The power to find peace has been in your possession all along. Tonight, and every night hereafter, you have the choice to use it. You can begin, not with a struggle, but with a simple, gentle act of kindness to yourself, remembering the truth you have found here. The peace you seek is not waiting for you in some distant future. It is waiting for you in the way you hold yourself right now, in this very moment. May you be peaceful, and may you rest well.